Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another round of the GTfusiOn 2022 Team World Championship, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, known as Gran Turismo 7. And tonight, with it being round 6, we of course have to conclude our championship proceedings. We have seen our drivers' campaigns run for the entirety of this year, starting all the way back in the early portion, back in March 2022. It has been a long journey for our drivers, where the practice has gone in, the effort has gone in, the blood, sweat and tears. Sometimes it's worked out, sometimes it has not. But as our drivers get ready to go racing one last time, with it being round number 6, come the finish of today, once all the points are accrued and the totals are tallied, we will be crowning our champions in terms of the team's champion and also our drivers' overall champions, whether it be in the Pro or the AM classes. But we're going to be focusing on Group B for today, and your schedule times in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or Universal Coordinated Time UTC, is as follows. We will be going into our first qualifying session, followed up by race number 1 at approximately 6:15 this evening. That will mean in just under 9 minutes time we'll be getting ready to go racing for the first time of asking, and then we'll be taking a brief breather before returning at approximately what will be 10 to 9 for qualifying session number 2, followed up by race number 2. We'll then be going into a break at approximately 7:15. That'll be a 10-minute break to give our drivers a brief respite and give them the opportunity to cool down, cool their heads down and get ready to go once again. And then we'll have 2 more races brought to you, kicking off at approximately 7:25 this evening, qualifying 3 and race 3, and then we go straight into qualifying 4 and race number 4 at 10 to 8, with an expected wrap-up time in the region of around 8:30. That's our playing schedule, and in the commentary booth you have myself, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and this broadcast is being brought to you live tonight via 2 media platforms for your viewing pleasure. Firstly, if you go on YouTube, you can tune in via TX141TX or what is Paul Walsh on YouTube. Alternatively, if you're more of a Twitch user, you could always go to twitch.tv/TX141. But enough about myself, let's bring you on to our drivers for tonight. Well, as we can see here, with it being Group B, this is the second split. And just to give you a quick recap of how the splits are organised, these splits are organised based on ELO for each of the drivers, with Group A being top split, going all the way down the order. So Group B being second split, and you can imagine that Group F, for example, would be the sixth split. Of course, over the racing weekend, we have races on Fridays, Saturdays and Sundays, with racing having kicked off on Friday the 25th of November, and that was our guest lobby and also one of our lobbies for drivers who were not able to make the weekend races, and therefore more of a mixed lobby. Whereas yesterday, on Saturday the 26th of November, the lobby was focused on what was Groups D downwards. So going from Group D all the way down to, if I remember correctly, Group K, we had approximately 8 lobbies going on simultaneously. And whilst it's been a challenging year, there's no doubt about that with regards to the state of Gran Turismo 7 and having to make things work. The numbers and the turnout from all of our drivers and teams has been nothing but splendid. And indeed, we've got an absolutely splendid Group B lobby here. Let's take you through the drivers, starting from top to bottom. We begin with our first driver in terms of ELO. So the highest rated driver for this lobby, but that is no indicator that they're guaranteed to win every race here, as we have seen time and time again. Indeed, you have to think back to Le Mans in round number 4, where we saw a complete upset being pulled by Team ERS. But at the top, we have An Zeng from Gran Turismo Borderless Esports there, or GTB in short, the Frenchman, with an ELO of 1,258.88. He'll have the pressure on him to perform tonight, being the highest rated driver. Just behind him there, by 0.011 ELO, it is GTPL's back, so racing team ATR, the Polish driver there, who we have seen and monitored the campaign over the course of this season. A fantastic driver, and we look forward to seeing him mixing it up. We then have HRT Bartek from HRT, the Polishman there, a sister Polish team with an ELO of 1,256.25. A little bit further down there on third place, and in fourth place, just slightly behind there by 0.5 approximately, is GTKRS Skuns from Racing Team Astra. That's RTA, the Frenchman there, representing the outfit that is dominated typically by drivers from the South African region, but they do expand out into a number of other regions, including France, and Skuns will be flying the flag for Racing Team Astra. We then, our fifth driver is GTB's Artical from Gran Turismo Borderless Esports there, the Belgian driver with an ELO of 1,254.94. And we should point out that with regards to Artical there, and you can also see Sub72 a little bit later on, they're in bold because they are our lobby hosts. They are hosting the lobbies for tonight, so that's why they've been earmarked out. Nothing more than that, they're just making sure that the proceedings run as much as possible. We then then come down to a GTB Maverick 27, again representing Gran Turismo Borderless Esports, the Canadian, who we saw in round number 5 put on a stellar set of performances on an ELO of 1,253.86, and then we come down to the number 11 driver there of WSR's Seb72. Of course, with WSR and GTB last year representing two separate teams, but this year merging together under the banner of GTBE, the Frenchman there on an ELO of 1,253.66. We then see RTA's Capam in the number 17 car for Racing Team Astra, the Frenchman, with an ELO of 1,251.95 as we move into the second half of our ELO standings, followed up by what is their ATR Kozio Fior, or we're going to be referring to him as Kozio where possible, the Polishman from ATR, representing his country of Poland, of course, on an ELO of 1,251.35. And closely followed by MTE's Mikas, or Mikas, I believe it's actually Mikas rather than Mikas, and the Polishman there on an ELO 1,251.29, very close behind Kozile Fior, and I wonder if the two Polishmen will be going toe-to-toe as rivals from their own country. We then have our penultimate driver of Quio Jua 2015, we'll be referring to it as Quio from this point onwards, the Gran Turismo Borderless Esports driver from Belgium, and with a 1,251.19 ELO, and then last but not least there, we have another MTE representative in the form of MTE Mieso, with the Polish driver there on an ELO of 1,249.70. The lowest ELO driver, but again, ELO is only an indicator of how our drivers have been grouped together, but not with regards to how they're expected to perform tonight. And we have seen upsets throughout the entirety of the season, where a driver who's had perhaps one of the lowest ELOs has outperformed the highest and vice versa. But let's wait and see. But also, what you've been waiting to see, what about our track for tonight? Well, our track is none other than the Autopolis International Racing Course Circuit, located in the region of Kamitsuya Village in Hita City of the Oita Prefecture of Japan. This circuit is not commonly seen outside of Japanese domestic calendars. Indeed, it is a mainstay of the major domestic Japanese series such as Super GT. And the reason we picked this circuit is to go in tandem with our choice of car for today, the Subaru BRZ GT300 Group 3 machine. But more on that in a brief moment, but we wanted to choose Autopolis because this circuit, since 2003, has been a staple of the Super GT calendar, and as you can see from the circuit map provided us by Will Pittinger from wikipedia.org, thank you to Will Pittinger for this wonderful track map. This is a circuit which comprises of a very highly technical and challenging set of corners, consisting of 19 corners, and as we can see, the average lap speed continues to stay low throughout the entirety of the lap, bar the start-finish straight and the run from turn 11 to turn 12, and also the run from turn 1 to turn 3. To take you quickly through the lap, it's a charge down the start-finish straight into a downhill braking zone into turn number 1, and as our drivers make their way into turn 1, they go downhill through the right-hand apex and then power out in the run through the flat-out kink of 2 before breaking their way into the right-hander of 3. Trail braking in there, and then further trail braking and throttle lifting is applied as they make their way through 3, 4 and 5. The double left-hander of 4 and 5 setting our drivers up to brake hard for the hairpin at turn number 6. Now the hairpin, and then they go through the sweeping right-hander at turn 7 before going through the double sweeping apex at turns 8 and 9, which is all about throttle control, before coming flat out through the kink of 10 and braking into turn number 11. And this is where we see the dynamic of the lap change completely, because as they come out of the turn 11 hairpin, it's a downhill run in towards turn number 12 where we'll see some potential overtakes. But more importantly, this is where the circuit starts to now. There's only one racing line and overtakes become nigh on impossible unless you're very brave on the brakes. For going through turn number 12, a downhill right hander where you need to carry the speed, and it's an uphill run through turn 13, which is again about using the road camber and also the uphill nature of the corner to your advantage before gripping your way up and making your way through the left hand kink of 14 before braking and trail braking all the way through the right hander of 15 to set yourself up for 16, the left-hander that follows, then for another left-hander at turn 17, before heading to turn 18, the long right-hander that never seems to end, and it's the kink of 19 to complete the lap. Sounds complicated? It sure is, but we'll bring you an on-board lap in qualifying very shortly, just to give you an idea of what it's like to drive around the Autopolis International Racing Course Circuit. But before we go racing, let's bring you on to the rules. Now, as you can see here, for tonight, in terms of car and setup, our drivers shall be driving the Subaru BRZ or the BRZ GT300 2021 machine, because this round is dedicated as a homage to the success of Subaru last year in the Super GT Championship. For those who are uninitiated, Subaru introduced the BRZ GT300 into the 2021 Super GT Championship and pulled off their first win in that championship in 2021 within the GT300 class. The car being driven by the driver parent of Takuto Takuto, Iguchi and Hideki Yamauchi. The two drivers there putting off an absolutely stellar drive to success, and we're going to be replicating that tonight. Now, in terms of the cars themselves, balance of performance is off, which means that we are running a custom balance of performance on the cars. Our drivers' cars have been restricted to a power output of 542 horsepower and a weight of 1,150 kilograms. Tuning is permitted, so our drivers will be bringing their own setups to the circuit today. We are not forcing drivers to run with a predetermined setup, and drivers have the racing medium and hard compounds available. Now, in general, mechanical damage has been set to heavy, meaning drivers must pit to repair damage. Tyre wear has been set to times 12. That's quite an aggressive tyre wear ratio, which means that tyres will wear off, and particularly those mediums, and you can imagine already where we're going with this, there will be mandatory pit stops in the races, and fuel depletion has been set to times 8, which means some fuel saving may be required. But as we continue to look our way through the rules, let's come on to some slightly changed rules, so you can see them in red there, because of course this round is not just a celebration of what is Subaru and Super GT. This round is also a celebration of the 25th anniversary of Gran Turismo, and indeed the 14th anniversary of the GTfusiOn Team World Championship, and it's almost as if it happened completely in accordance with the two events transpiring together, but qualifying is returning to the original qualifying sessions that we saw at GT Sport. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, we now have the ability to have timed qualifying sessions and also a transition over into the race. Our drivers can set up the cars before they go racing, which means qualifying 1 shall consist of 15 minutes to set the best possible time. Qualifying sessions 2, 3 and 4, those should last 5 minutes. There'll be a third in length, and that means the pressure is on. There's no tyre wear or fuel depletion in qualifying, and in the races, well, our drivers shall be starting on the grid, of course, based on how they've qualified, but more importantly for them, what we'll also see is the grid start will be a standing grid start with full start check, which means that our drivers will need to get the launch off the line in order to nail the run into turn number 1. Drivers must use both compounds for at least 1 lap in each of the races. There is a mandatory pit stop requirement to change tyres, and each race is 11 laps in total. That doesn't sound like much, but with the average lap time around here being approximately 1 minute 40, that does mean we are looking in the region of 20 to 25 minute races, depending on how it all plays out. But speaking of it all playing out, I do believe that we are getting ready to go into qualifying, and indeed qualifying is underway, ladies and gentlemen, and now we take you live to the circuit. So as our drivers get ready to make their way out of the pit lane, we do tune into how they're all getting on here. And what I do believe some drivers are already making their way on out. And as we can see here, it is Bartek99 making his way out onto the circuit right now, with fellow drivers just coming on behind as they roll their way on through. But as we see Bartek heading on down through turn number 1, with the qualifying session being 15 minutes in length, this does mean that for this session in particular, the pressure is slightly off of our drivers in terms of nailing the lap from the outset. However, you can imagine the complexion of that will completely change in qualifying sessions 2, 3 and 4, and therefore for our drivers right now, this really is not just a qualifying session, but also it's a warm-up session, because they'll want to use as much time in the session as possible. There'll be no tyre wear or fuel effect to make sure they've completely dialed in the car, and they've also dialed in the lap. Now, our drivers will have been doing plenty of practice. Indeed, as we've spoken previously, some teams, when they hear the combination has been announced and the combination is announced 3 weeks before we go racing, some teams will spend every hour they can practicing. Indeed, some teams have spent over 10,000 kilometers of practice time here at Autopolis and put in over hundreds of hours of practice, but it means so much to them. You can completely understand, and that's what it's all about. The racing itself may not be a real world location, indeed real in terms of the physical cars out on the physical circuit, but the emotions, the practice and the motivation is real with it, and that's why we love sim racing. And as we do see our drivers making their way on through the latter half of the lap, here's some absolutely beautiful liveries, and I've actually just had a word come through from GTE with regards to their livery, because you may notice they're running a slightly different livery compared to what they typically run. Normally their livery, as we can see here from WSR 72, the livery is normally all light green with black connotations and also white text on it, but they are running a slightly tweaked livery today with the pink on the car, and the reason for that is it's been a hectic year for the team as a whole, so they went to do something different to celebrate that they made it through a very tough year for the team. And indeed we've seen over the rounds, particularly rounds 4 and 5 didn't quite work out for GTB as much as they wanted to. They've really had to find themselves on the back foot this season. But on top of that as well, their friend and teammate Pepsi GT, as some of you may know Pepsi, is going through a hard time at the moment with his wife, and after the birth of a newborn baby, Well, we're not going to talk too much about it, but it was because they were expecting that Pepsi would join, but there's been a bit of complications with regards to the family and with regards to the newborn baby being in not the best state of health at the moment. I'm not going to go into too much there because I think we do want to try and reserve as much of their private life as possible, but they've done this livery in honour of Pepsi, join them out on the circuit, not in terms in form of being in the car, but with regards to being as part of the team and being fully motivated all the way through. But we do wish Pepsi and his wife and their little one all the best, and I hope that whilst things are not working out at the moment with regards to the health of their little one and also their wife, Pepsi's wife, that they do feel better in due course. Of course, we always want to hear good news stories with the fact there's been a lot of bad news in the media over the last couple of years where it's been COVID-19 or other circumstances, but let's not have any negativity. Let's think upwards and onwards, and we wish them all the best. But as we do say hello there to GTV's and Mookie in the YouTube chat, and also to GT_KRS's Jerome in the YouTube chat, who is saying hello to Mookie as well, and I hope you guys are doing well. If you are tuning in, whether it's on Twitch or alternatively on YouTube, do not be shy, feel free to say hi. And well, as our drivers now make their way to the end of their first flying laps, we can see here GTV's Bax making his way out of the final couple of corners here, and very shortly we will be riding on board with Bax for a flying lap, and in fact now we can do, as he makes his way down towards turn number 1. So as he heads on down towards the braking zone here, onto the anchors he goes, going all the way down the gearbox there to 3rd gear before rolling his way through the right-hander and now powering down towards turn number 3. Building up for the gearbox once again here as he makes his way up towards turn number 3 and into the braking zone. You'll see he'll trail brake his way down through 5th gear into 4th here, staying in the high gear to settle the car and get the power application before staying in 4th initially, dropping a 3rd mid between apexes up to 4th again to get the power down, and now down 2 gears into what is turn number 5 coming through. Sorry, turn number 6 I should say, through the hairpin there and now accelerating up through the gearbox once again, up to 3rd, up to 4th, into double left-hander turns 8 and 9 as he makes his way through the long left here in 5th gear. He upshifts there to try and get the power down, runs a little bit wide but still fully committed as he now makes his way through the kink of 10 and into the 2nd hairpin at turn number 11. Onto the brakes he goes once again, down to 3rd gear here, deciding to stay in a slightly higher gear. We incorrectly called it. Turn 6 also staying in 3rd gear as he now makes his way down towards turn number 12. Downhill braking zone here, got to carry all the speed you can, drop to 4th, then back up to 5th and now into turn number 13. Drops to 4th here, a little bit of understeer. You can see how the camber of the road causes the car to jut out into 14. He goes, clutching over the apex curve and now straight line under braking, trail braking through 15, through the 1st apex, into the 2nd apex, and now going up through the gears here, through 16, through 17, the left-hander, dabbing the throttle, keeping it planted, and as he makes his way up into 18, it's the long right, he stays in 4th initially. Will he drop down a gear here to 3rd? No, he stays in 4th to get the power down, and as Bax comes to the kink of 19, it's been a smooth lap from Bax. Does he improve this time around? He does indeed. He improves to P5 there on a 40.923. A very nice lap there from the Polishman representing his team as he makes his way on down towards turn number 1. As he flows on down here and heading into turn 1 once again, we do look from Bax to a little bit further down the order, and in particular we do look to Iguchi 15, the GTV driver here from Belgium, making his way on through turn number 1 at the moment. And you can see that the delta between P10 and P1 is a whole second at the moment. And does that mean it's a huge delta, or is it something that can be very quickly found? Perfection is key here at Autopolis, and that means that 1 second right now, it sounds like a lot. It's not. If you nail the lap, you can find half a second very quickly around here. You've just got to be absolutely perfect each and every time, and that's where right now, let's not take these standings for granted. They could change very quickly over the course of the remainder of this qualifying session. And well, in terms of time, you can see then the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, we've already completed the first 6 minutes of this qualifying session. We do still have approximately 8.5 minutes to go, and with plenty of time still on the board, we could see the likes of MT's and Miyaso here improve. And look at that livery on the car there, that blend of blue and black and grey over the course of the car. Very unique livery, I must say. I haven't seen that one over the course of the season so far when we've been covering Group B, but definitely standing out a treat there as we do see Miyaso making his way on down. Meanwhile, GTV's Maverick is still parked in the pit lane and deciding not to go out, and I wonder if Maverick's deciding to park on up and just start from the back of the field. Perhaps there's a little bit of strategy involved here, as meanwhile going from one GTV driver at the bottom of the listings to the GTV driver at the top of the listings, things, and that is Artikal here, the Belgian driver, who right now 1.5 tenths faster than GTV and Zeng, who right now P2 the Frenchman. The GTV trying to lock out the front row in this one, and well, how important is track position or grid position, I hear you ask? It's very important here at Top List, and you may have already noticed from the track map we showed earlier, but also with regards to the circuit as we look around and our drivers do their qualifying laps, this is a very tight circuit in terms of racing lines. There's only really one line through the majority of corners here, which means that if you're offline, you're going to be losing a lot of time. So it comes at a premium in terms of making overtakes. Our main overtaking zones will be turn 1 in the run down the start finish straight into the opening corner, the run to turn number 3, also the run coming out to turn number 9 through the kink of 10, which we just see Artikal making his way out and up towards 11. Here we could see some battles on the brakes. The run to 12, albeit a short run, so again it's going to be a little bit reliant on the driver making a mistake coming out of 11, but beyond that we're going to have to see some rather forceful moves, or typically you've got to press your opponent into a mistake if you want to make an overtake here at Autopolis. But that also means, and that is why we've got the mandatory pit stop here today, where we've got the medium and the hard compounds available, because that is going to put pressure on our drivers. Now, all of our drivers will be doing this qualifying session on the medium tyre. There's no question about that, because they do have the ability to change tyres between qualifying and the race. That's been newly introduced into Gran Turismo 7 as of the 25th anniversary update, or the 1.26 update that's recently arrived. So this is something that our drivers are going to be reveling in. It has completely changed the complexion of the season finale, because originally, of course, all of our drivers up to a couple of days ago were preparing for the scenario whereby we would have the single lap or the 2-lap qualifying session for the opening qualifying session, and therefore time would be a lot more restricted, and therefore the strategy would essentially be determined on what tyres you've qualified on, which we saw earlier on in the season in rounds 4 and 5, as we see Bartek there, oh goodness me, and rejoining the Artikal going straight there into Bartek, and well, the two drivers coming together, and that'll be heavy damage on both of their cars. Bartek apologising immediately, as you can see there, but that's not good for either of them, because that heavy damage will not be repaired, and they will need to come into the pits to be able to repair it. Now, meanwhile, speaking of drivers who are on the move, and Zeng here continuing to push on as he goes very wide out of 16 into 17, really pushing the track limits and trying to find the extra grip on the outside line. And as he makes his way through 18 here, committed on the throttle was the Frenchman as he comes on around. Can he improve, or will he stay where he is currently? Crosses the line, he improves, but it's not enough to dethrone Artikal from pole. He improves by 200s, but look at this from Skuns here as he makes his way on around. Right now, P3, and the separation between him and that front row is only 800s. It is so tight in this qualifying session. Bax is only half a tenth off, if that, and then we do have what is Capam, who I believe may be substituting for one of his peers. I haven't had information as to who he's substituting for, but we do have Capam here making his way on around as well. It shows you how close it is with regards to the drivers and qualifying here, although Capam right now going purple in the run into what is turn number 11 there, and that's really the first half of a lap complete. Now, can he follow it through in the second half of a lap? We will have to wait and see. But as he does here, making his way on down through turn 12 into 13, Capam continues to push on through and up the hill into 14 he goes, and well, not in his team delivery here, so I think he might have had to jump in at short notice to cover for a driver who's perhaps not been available. Of course, our teams do have substitute drivers who are available and are permitted to take over the car in circumstances, but as Capam comes up through here, oh goodness me, and that is a little bit of a latency spike there, and we've just caught up with his car, so it does look like there's a little bit of an unstable connection perhaps on Capam's side, alternatively the feed we're getting. And as he makes his way through 18 into 19, will this be pole? Not quite, no. The latter half of the lap they're losing out, and Capam will have to do it again. But meanwhile, we see Bax here coming on for into turn number 6, driver going off, and I believe that was Bartek deciding to park up. He's staying clear at the moment. I think Bartek may have decided enough's enough, or is he just waiting for track position? Well, whatever he's doing right now, he's parked up. I think he's asking to pit because he's got damage on the car as he looks to get himself back underway. But meanwhile, speaking of a driver who wants to try and find himself on his way, it is ATR's Cozy Fior, who makes his way through turns 15 to 16 into 17 right now, coming on through, and as he does here, making his way into 18. Can he improve come the end of this lap? Well, we're about to see here as he comes out the final corner to cross the line for ATR. It does not look as though it's an improvement. He goes again here, and we bring you up the data with regards to his gearing as we ride on board from his cockpit here as he makes his way down into turn number 1, and we give you the onboard lap. And you can see going a little bit deep there, and the car unsettled in third gear. And Jose Fior, who we typically have seen being really on point in his qualifying sessions, just not feeding the run of the car at the moment as he comes into turn number 3. And you can see that it's almost as if the car's pointing into the corner, so it doesn't want to turn. There's a lot of understeer in the setup he's brought to this qualifying session, and I think it might just be really hurting the car. As you can see, going over the curve into turn number 6, causes him to lose a little bit of the run, coming into 7 and 8. Now down into 9, he rolls. He comes to the second part of the left-hand apexes, and as he makes way out of 9 up towards 10, a bit of a smoother run now. I wonder if they set this car up for the latter half of the lap, but if so, that really pointy front end is going to hurt them massively as they make their way uphill through turns 15 and 16, when you've got a lot of direction change in a very short window of time as he comes on down towards turn number 12. But this has not been a smooth lap so far. In 5th gear, down to 4th. And staying in 4th gear there. Nice run through turn number 12, so he's starting to have a bit of an upturn on the lap here, but again clattering his way over the apex curve of 13 into 14 he goes, having to balance throttle. You can see how much throttle work's going in, and then trail braking through 15, and this is a lovely sequence when you get it right through 15 into 16. In 3rd gear, powering all the way through up to 4th for the short shift to turn the car in nice and early into 17, fighting against the understeer again into 18. The car's just not cooperating, but he's staying in 4th there to try and get the power down into 19, but it's not the way that you want it to go. He crosses the line and he still does not improve, and Jose Fior is really struggling in this qualifying session. It has to be said, the car just seems to not want to do what the drivers are asking him to, and as he drifts his way into turn number 1 there, well, I think that just goes to show you some frustration that may be building as we still have GTV's Maverick 27 in the pit lane, the Canadian not able to get the car out on circuit. I wonder if there's a technical issue as we see Bartek here making his way around for HRT, and as the Polishman makes his way through, of course, he's just repaired the car, so now he's only really got 1 more lap to go, with the fact we've just got over a minute remaining on the clock. And as he comes on through at turn number 15 into 16 here, Bartek keeping it smooth, rolling his way on through the double left, coming out 16, 17, heading into 18. And as he comes on through the right hand here, well, making his way all the way through to the line. And as he comes on to the checkered flag line, he'll go round 1 more time here in anger to see what he can do to improve. Can Bartek move himself up from what is P10? We cross the line, and we haven't got a checker flag out at the moment, so we see MT's Miso going up to a 140.6, and that's going to move him a little bit further up the order, but still plenty of times to go on in. And we focus here on Bartek as we see GTV's Zen, or Zeng as he's known, going a little bit faster as well. So those lap times continuing to come in. In fact, Artikel has been dethroned from the provisional pole position by his teammate Van Zeng, and could we see GTV's front row lockout converted into just simply what is 1 driver on that front row, with GTVL's backs currently trying to push on to get himself on that front row as well. But it's so tight up front, but we're focused here on Bartek from HRT as he looks to try and improve very late on this qualifying session. 15 minutes is complete. Our drivers now will have to complete their final qualifying laps as the checker flag will be out, as we see Bartek making his way up towards turn number 11 and coming on through at the left hand here. Well, Bartek right now, it is his final lap. He heads on down the hill. It's been a smooth lap so far. We haven't got a reference lap to go with, of course, that data being reset since he jumped to the pits, but what we do know is he's currently 8 tenths down on the provisional pole lap here as he flows his way uphill through turn 13 into 14, coming through 14 into 15, through the right hander he goes, and as he makes his way on up the hill through 15, 16 here, very smooth driving style to be fair, but the problem is he's not connecting the dots between the curves at 15 and 16, and that's just cost him about a tenth there as he comes on through 18. But again, the car could be sensitive to those curves given the fact they brought their own setup to the circuit today. And as he comes out the final corner, it's been a good one from Bartek. Is it enough? He crosses the line. He does not improve. What about the driver behind? That's P4 driver Mieso. He does not improve either from P4. Bax has completed his qualifying session. I think most of our drivers are done. Last driver will be GTV's, and Zeng comes to the line. He improves to a 39.9460, only 39 in this qualifying session, and Zeng will take pole position on the grid for race number 1 here by almost 6 tenths over GTV's Artical, who lines up alongside him then on that front row. But what a qualifying session, and GTV make it a 1-2 lockout for race 1 with GTVL backs there P3. He'll start off our second row, only 700ths faster than MT's Mieso there, and well, so close between the two of them. And look at the delta it was for P4 between Mieso from MTE and then Skuns there, with Skuns in the end P5, as we now, I believe, transition. Well, I think we transition away from qualifying, although I think our perspective here may have just glitched a little bit, ladies and gentlemen. We will try and get this fixed very shortly before we go racing. We will be right back. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Apologies for the slight technical issue. It does seem as though that even though we now have qualifying sessions available in Gran Turismo 7's lobbies, some of the minor technical hitches and bugs are still to be resolved. But still, it's been the story of GT Fusion 2022 for this year in the fact that we have worked through every technical issue, a glitch, or everything in between that has been thrown at us, and we have continued the story. And right now, as I understand it, well, our drivers have been taking photos of the qualifying times and the qualifying standings following qualifying session 1, so we'll be looking at having the grid set via that, and it'll be set by the host in the near future. We are just waiting for confirmation of exactly what's going to happen, but all the drivers currently in the pit lane at the moment. But whilst we do wait, of course, a little bit perhaps not known about the Autopolis circuit. The Autopolis circuit, interesting enough, despite it's a very popular circuit within Japan, and Japan, of course, known for a whole variety of circuits from Suzuka through to Twin Ring Motegi, this circuit, whilst it's been quite popular domestically, has not been the most successful financially. It is a circuit that has changed hands multiple times over the course of its history, and that's proven to the fact that the funding and financing for the circuit has proven very tricky indeed. Now, it does have quite stable ownership at the moment, but it's one of those circuits whereby you'd normally expect, with say Suzuka or Twin Ring Motegi, it always seems to stay within a pre-set of hands. Well, with the case of those two circuits, of course, it's in the hands of Honda Manufacturing Company, but with the Autopolis circuit not owned up by manufacturer in the car industry, owned by business industries instead, and therefore it keeps changing hands every couple or so years. But recently, the owners that currently own the circuit, I can't remember off the top of my head, and they're not in the notes here, unfortunately. We'll just double check that with regards to who the current owners of the circuit are, but it is in relatively stable hands at the moment. But also, because of this circuit being located at a quite high altitude level, not perhaps as high as, say, the Mount Fuji footfall circuit of Fuji Speedway, this circuit is very taxing on drivers as well, given its altitude. And as our drivers do get ready to go racing here, well, of course, they do not need to manage the altitude differential compared to what they do in real life, but it is, of course, something that's been replicated as best as possible within Gran Turismo 7. A really picturesque circuit as well, and you can see they're located within the hills and the natural scenery and landscape. It is a circuit which is very endearing to the locals. Indeed, a wonderful circuit to visit, and if it's not on your wish list of circuits to go visit in person one day, if you were to visit Japan, well, I definitely recommend putting it on there. It's on mine one day, but as we do wait here, our drivers right now getting themselves set, and the grid is gradually being set by organisers. You can see there that 772 working with Maverick 27, the two GTV drivers there to get the grid set as soon as possible. It will be a manual grid that is set. They will not be seeing our drivers go back out. It does mean we will have a slight delay, approximately a 5 to 10 minute delay in our predetermined schedule, but as we do wait, of course, it only means that the appetite for our drivers to perform becomes ever higher. But as they get ready to go here, well, we talked about Super GTV running at the circuit, but with it being a very Japanese domestic focus circuit in terms of the series run here, let's give you an idea of what other series have run at Autopolis. There's also, for example, Super Formula, which has been running here since 2009 and continues to run all the way up to the present. We have also seen Super Bike series, I should say, running around this circuit. We've also seen former series such as Touring Car Racing Japan race here from 2019 to 2021, and also a brief stint was run here by Formula BMW Asia in 2004 to 2005. So the circuit does have quite a glaring interest indeed, much loved within its own country, and well, I wonder if it will make its way onto more mainstay international calendars in the future, given the fact this circuit is a very technical circuit, perhaps the most technical out of those most known in Japan. But as we can see here, the grid has been set, and I do believe now our drivers are ready to go. So everyone's been given the thumbs up here. We'll be very shortly transitioning over into the race, and as we do here, we'll be jumping onto the cameras and spectating exactly how it all plays on out. So, presuming, of course, there's no more technical hitches. As our drivers get ready to go here, I'm wondering if we're going to be given the ready up call as well or not, as we are continuing to wait here. And in fact, we will have a start at what will be in a minute's time at 18:45, and we are just going to check whether we need to ready up. Well, here we go then, ladies and gentlemen. Time ticks down. It's time for race number 1. And there is the grid with all of our drivers set and ready to go. And as we bring up the race information here, standing start, we await the lights. One red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go here for race number 1 as our drivers get underway and charge down towards turn number 1. Anzen getting a good start here as he makes his way down into the braking zone, but as he comes charging down, you can see now the crescendo as they come into the braking zone. 3 wide they go, and Mioso coming in extremely hot there like a barge board. Now the question is, of course, will the drivers behind be too pleased with that? I don't think so, but meanwhile look at Skuns here up the inside, capitalising the situation to return on the inside into turn number 3 and moves up to P2 as they make the way through 4 and 5, but back to Mioso there. Mioso being sent to the grass as backs there, I think, in return for what happened in turn 1. Saying 1 coming through as well, but Mioso there gaining 2 places and then losing 2 in quick succession, as meanwhile we can see here the GTV's Kyoju 2015 losing out versus Mioso, but gaining versus Capem as they make the way through turns 8 and 9. Up towards 10 they go, and as they do, things now start to settle down, but I say that in step 22 under pressure here from Bartek as they make the way into the break-ins on the HRT driver on the outside into 11. Onto the anchors they go, they sweep on through, no change at the moment other than it's still a 2-way run, but as they come down, Bartek backs out here and looks to make the move on the next lap as they come down into turn 12 for the first time. As they make the way through the sweeping right hand, you can see just behind Kozio if you're having a reasonable start, still caught up in the battle for P8 as they come through turn 13 and up towards 14, 15 they go, and behind we also have GTV's Oddcow and also GTV Maverick. They're bringing up the rear, but to be fair they could be on the alternative strategy here, which is to start on the hard and switch to the medium midway through, but as they make the way through 17 and up towards 18 under the bridge they go. We look from the back of the field to the front of the field. It's GTV's Anzeng who had an absolutely brilliant start off the line, and he leads as he goes into lap number 2. It's then Skuns in P2, followed by GTVL's Bax in P3. Then we have Mieso chasing down the ATR driver for MT in P4, followed by Kyoju at 2015 for GTV P5 as they make the way up into turn number 1. As they do, Capam on the inside there, smooth move, and as he gets it down, now look at MT's Micas here as they make the way through 2. He's been squeezed to the grass there, 2 wheels on the grass. He feels though he's got alongside. He's going to force the issue with the GTV driver here into turn number 3, into the right hander they go, and as they emerge he's on the outside into 4 5, but to be fair, going all the way around the outside, it's possible if you find the grip, but he had to back out there. He found a little bit of grass on the way, and as he does going through turn number 6, he now finds Seb trying to go around the outside. Seb there being squeezed a little bit, but having to back out there. 9 and 2 does not go into 1 when you switch back into turns 7, 8 and 9 in quick succession, but as they come through 8 now into 9, Micah's going a bit deep, so up the inside here, side by side between the pair of them as they make the way through 10 and up towards 11. Into the braking zone they go here. Micah's right now staying close. Seb there trying to get his nose in, but the door's partially shut, and as they make the way out to 11, he's going to open the door back up in this battle for 7th place as they come down towards turn number 12. Now onto the brakes they go once again, and Micah's this time you can see they're settling their head and Seb staying close behind as they make the way through turn number 13 as they come up the hill now. Well, the Polishman here is caught between a rock and a hard place. We've got 2 GTV drivers who are going to be working together around him to try and work their strategy, but also work their way around the MTE driver. As you can see, he's trying to make a move coming out 15 and 16. That's bold, if I dare say so, and as he comes through 17 he's going to hang around the outside, but you can see there Kyoju just literally covering it off and saying no, you're going to have to try something a little bit more inventive than that. I can see it's coming as they come through 18 and 19, but as they make the way out of the final 2 corners, it's a complete lap number 2. Well, the top 5 are breaking away at the moment, gradually heading off into the distance, but Mike is still looking for the move here as they come down towards turn number 1 for the 3rd time on the inside here, and he's going to be coming in hot as they make the way into the brakes, and you can see that little bit of a squirrel moment, the rear just lifting under braking there. Mike is having to fight the steering wheel. The brake bias in that car must be very rearward indeed, and Seb 72 here with the fact his teammate has been given the elbow out a little bit by Beef. I think it was a fair move into turn 1. I just think the little upset on the rear of the car may have just knocked Kyoju about slightly from Micah's perspective, and as they make the way from 4, 5 and into 6 here, 7 moves up a place on his teammate but stays in the hunt. Meanwhile, we can see that Artical coming through versus Kyoju, and then behind him P10 we have Bartek, who right now is holding off ATR's Kozal Fior as they make the way through the left-hander. The HRT driver ahead of the ATR driver as they head up towards turn number 11. But goodness me, what an absolute brilliant brilliant opening pair of laps here, plenty of battling up and down the field, but particularly in the midfield right now, that seems to be where the hot contention points are as we look to our leader here, who seems to be showing no signs of slowing down as he makes his way through turn number 13 up towards 14 and 15, and Zheng is absolutely flying. But meanwhile, in the hunt for P2, well, this is Skuns right now, and Skuns, to be fair, after an absolute flyer of a start, making his way into P2, come the run out of turn number 3 after what happened into turn 1 with the two drivers behind him, of course, of GTPL's Bax and also MTE's Mieso here as they make their way through at turn number 18, or sorry, turn number 17 into 18. You can see right now that the trio are coming together, and we ride on board with Bax here, who continues to try and force the... Oh, goodness me! And, well, Bax off the road there. I think there was a little bit of an upset to kind. It almost looked as though there was a bit of contact or latency contact as Bax tries to bring it back together, but that was a surprise to be sure, and not a welcome one for the ATR driver as he brings himself back up to speed, but he's now last place after running inside the top 3 for quite some time. But meanwhile, we come back here to Skuns, and let's just take a look on the damage indicators of the car. Is there damage on the car? No, there's not for Skuns. This gives us a good opportunity as well to take a look at what strategy is being run by each of our drivers. So we start off with our race leader here as he continues to make his way around on lap number 4, and as he does here, we can see Anzen starting on the medium. He's done a lot of work on that tyre, to be fair, to protect the tyre early on. You can see there is a little bit more guiding compared to what is the front, but at the same time balanced wear on both sides, which means that's going to work out quite nicely, keeping the car stable over the remainder of this stint. And then Skuns, by comparison, really starting to wear down that front left, very aggressive on those right-hand corners is Skuns, by looks of things, and putting pressure on that front left tyre with Mieso there, doing even more to take the front tyres apart, and that goes to show, I think, for the Mieso, he's decided to run quite a central brake bias on the car compared to a lot of drivers, I think, running a rearward brake bias to try and balance the tyre wear of the car out as much as possible. But Mieso going all for it here, but that will mean he'll have to pit earlier unless he wants to be running on rims come the next couple of laps. Then we do have Kapan behind him, who's running on similar tyre wear here, both drivers pushing it hard with GTV's Artical on the medium here. A little bit more life in the tyre compared to P3, P4, but still the GTV driver here has to be aware of the fact the tyres are falling towards the cliff, as we have Step 72 here, who's almost depleted the tyres. My goodness. And of course, the longer you can run on the medium tyre and the less time you spend on the hard, the better typically in these races, because the medium compound around on top is perceived to be approximately 1 second a lap faster, if not 1.5 seconds a lap faster, depending on the pace of the race and the tyre preservation needs to go in. But Seb here is going on to one more lap, and that means come the end of this lap, that front tyre, that front left tyre, and particularly the front right as well, could also be at risk of this. Maybe Fred Bet, and if so, that is going to be a huge risk, because that tyre is just going to collapse in terms of any grip it offers, and when it does, Seb is going to be treading on ice. And we can see Micah's behind, also in a similar situation for MTE. And then we have Kyoju here, who's on the hard compound, and here, these are the hard runners behind from P8 to the back, who are all running on the compound right now. That seems to be the optimal race compound in terms of its durability, but not necessarily in terms of its pace, but they're enjoying the run of the tyre right now, as is Bartek here, who right now has done a great job in protecting those rears, less so on the fronts, but to be fair, we're seeing the front tyres on all the cars being quite heavily worn down. And then we have a Maverick here, who, as soon as I say that, shows us that you can balance the tyre wear out with the fact there's a lot of balance in that tyre. Oh, goodness me, Bartek up the inside of Kyoju into turn number 11. He can't quite find it. He has to back out as they make their way down the hill towards turn number 12 here in the long run. Now, this is where the hard runners are starting to feel the benefits of their tyre compound, when the medium runners are starting to hit the cliff and fall off it in terms of those lap times. But of course, the problem is now they're coming into the second half of a lap. Where can you overtake here? You've got to rely on the driver in front making an error, and look at this. Micah's has got no tyre left on the front at all, and what this means is he's literally having to just hope the car will point it where he steers it to, and he's just dropping away. And Seb, by comparison, a bit more comfortable here, but the same, and they are falling away as P2, P3, P4 all come into the pit. Skuns, Mieso, Capo, Artical, they're all coming in. The medium runners cannot go any further as they all clatter their way into the pit lane. And as they do, now it's the opportunity for the hard runners to try and put the time over the medium runners. But as they come down to the braking zone here, the battle for P3 is on, and Kyoju from GTV battling with HRTs at Bartek as they make the way out to 1. But Bartek, they're getting the switch back on the speed run out of turn number 1. And as they make their way down towards 3 here, Bartek looking for the move, but he's got to cover off Maverick at the same time. He finds himself again being attacked by 2 GTV drivers here. We're having to go on the offensive versus 1, but defend against the other, we should really say. And GTV position themselves themselves very well in this race to work together and create those situations where it's always 2-on-1, and they're the two in the scenario. But meanwhile, just behind Cozy Alafior here, really on with an opportunity if he can find his way on through. But the problem for this group of four is all this battling they're doing will essentially mean that when they do go to the medium eventually, they will find themselves behind the hard runners. And again, with overtaking being so challenging and the medium tyre we have seen only really lasting 5 laps if that, the question will be, can they get that medium to work effectively as an overtaking tyre? We would argue for laps 1 and 2, yes, but if they push it too hard, they may not have any tyre left come the run in the final lap or so, and the car could end up falling off the cliff, as we said previously. But meanwhile, we look from them to race leader, and that is our medium runner, our last medium runner yet to pit from the opening tyre set, and that is Anzeng, who's taken those mediums a 6th lap, and that is going to make his second stint ever more comfortable here as he makes way into the pit lane. You can see they're just gingerly bringing it into the pit lane. The crew ready to receive the GTE driver here. His focus is with that 16-second gap on bringing it home now on the hard tyre. Meanwhile, Kyoju here, does he come into the pits? He does. So this is the cutover point for hard to medium as he comes on down. As we say hello to David Miasco, and also there to, I believe, we've got a couple other drivers and also viewers here, including Oka's Stepper, and I hope you guys are doing well in the YouTube chat. But Anzeng returns to the track, having taken his pit stop to go onto the hard, and well, he is leading, and again by an advantage of at least 7 seconds. He makes way down. In fact, that'll be about 6 seconds when they come through turn up 1 with Skuns in hot pursuit here. But Skuns, of course, having to pit 1 lap earlier, but he's got the advantage over Capham, and Capham has got ahead of Artical since the pit stop, as they make the way through 2 and down towards turn number 3. But as we do clear the data off screen right now in terms of all the telemetry data and just bring up the race data once again here, we can see that now it becomes a game of tyre preservation all the way to the finish line for our drivers. And can they push hard? That will be the question, as we see. And meanwhile, Seb72 here making his way through the right-hander of turn number 6, the hairpin here. He has come out ahead of Kyoju, and also MT's Mike is behind as they come through. And given the fact that we have seen the fuel tanks lasting about 100% for the race, in terms of you're going with a 100% tank, it will last the duration with a little bit of fuel saving. We may have seen some drivers have to take a quick splash and dash of fuel when they pit stop, and that may be explaining why we're seeing a slight shake-up in the order. And as we said earlier, Seb getting ahead of Kyoju, and behind, Mike is falling back a little bit here, and now he has got the Polish contingent behind him, his fellow countrymen. Oh, but what is Bartek from ATR, and also ATR's GTBL backs behind. So right now we can see the MTE driver here really having to work hard and dig deep to try and hold on to the position, but it's all going to come together in the last couple of laps here, where I think some drivers may just struggle to get that hard tyre to last the duration, or indeed the medium tyre that they've gone on to. And well, for the drivers at the back here, they have effectively gone on to that medium, having started on the hard and been battling so hard on the aforementioned compound tyre as they make their way through 17 and up into 18. But as Mike is here, rolls his way on through, Bartek close behind, looking for the move, and then Bags looking to get into the fight here. 3 different teams respectively battling into these corners. Of course, we have the MT driver ahead of the HRT driver, and then we have ATR's at Bags in pursuit as they make their way down towards turn and number 1 once again. And it looks as though Bartek thinking about it, but he cuts back just at the last moment there, trying to get Marcus to make a mistake under braking to outbrake himself, but no can do it, says Marcus. They make their way through 2 and up into 3. And as they come down to the braking zone here, we can see Maverick battling with Koza Lefior, and Koza Lefior up the inside into turn number 3. Traditional pass there, and Maverick not fighting it too hard, I think focusing on preserving the tyres to the end of the race. As they come through into turn number 6 here, we can see Mike is struggling a little bit of oversteer there, contact between the two of them, and Bartek gets ahead, and so does Bax as he covers off the inside into turns 8 and 9, and Mike is there just putting the power down a little bit too soon and losing the rear of the car, the MTE driver, and thankfully not taking Bartek to the grass as they made their way out of the corner. They both settled down, but that could have gone a lot worse, and for Mikis in particular, it's okay now. He can settle down and focus on the driving once again, as meanwhile Seb72 here letting Kyoju past in the run to 12. I think Kyoju here has been on the radio to say, I'm faster at this point in the race, let me go and I'll chase down Mieso with the time remaining. And to be fair, GTB, of course, this is a team's championship, although there is a prize for the overall drivers champion in terms of the best driver driver out of the entire field of over 200 entrants as drivers. Right now, Kyoju here, feeling he's faster and pushing on to chase down the top 5, but he hasn't got long to go. Speaking of the top 5, we jump back up to our top 3, and in particular to P3 driver here, Capan 3141, and as he makes his way down towards turn number 1 here into the braking zone, well, there's not been too much change in this group. The only real change that has been noted so far is that Skuns, who did have a little bit of an advantage, a 2-second advantage when he came out the pit lane versus Capan, that advantage has now been cut down to 1.4 seconds. The pressure is building for Skuns as he makes his way through turns 4 and 5, but I think he'll feel safe at the moment. He's just got to nail the next 3 laps, including this one, and he'll be bringing home the second step of the podium. There'll be no doubt about it, but of course anything can happen until the checker flag is waved, and Skuns will not take anything for granted. Indeed, his team won't, as he heads on through turns 8 and 9. But also for Capan right now, the problem for him is he's got Artical, who is closing, and Artical in fact bringing that gap down to 7 tenths of a second. He's well within the tow zone as they make the way out to 10 of the slipstream, as we would formally mention it to be. And as he comes into the braking zone here for turn 11, taking 2.5 tenths of his previous best here. Artical definitely now really building that momentum as they come down towards turn number 12. Mioso just a little bit further behind in P5 there. Mioso not quite on the pace of the top 4 right now, but not lingering backwards to P6 either. I think the MTE driver here focusing on just delivering these laps and bringing home a top 5 finish, which will go well in terms of the points the team will pick up, but he is being closed down by Kyojo. There's no doubt about it. Kyojo over the course of this lap so far has taken 1.5 seconds out of the MTE driver, and that gap is coming down. Of course, this is the differential with the top 5 being on the hard compound and then the rest of the field being on the medium compound. We're now seeing the medium come together. And you may be asking at this point, well, what also works in favour of the medium runners, other than the fact they're at the latter half of the race? Well, of course, they've got less fuel in the car, which means less weight, less tyre wear. That's the typical nature. When you've got less fuel in the car, you're having to do less weight transfer every time under braking and cornering, and therefore it just means that you take a little bit less out of the tyre, corner to corner, brake zone to brake zone, and that's why running the medium late could work out well for a driver who's able to break away from the pack they started with. And that's GTV's Kyoju here, who right now is really on the charge. Set a personal best on that previous lap of 41.641. Can he bring home a top 5 here, or has he not got enough time? The rate of closure says it's 2 seconds a lap he's peeling out at the moment, but of course those mediums are wearing down. They're wearing down fast, and come the end of this lap, has he got any life left in the tyre to be able to bring that gap down once more? You can see already the gap now down to 3.1 seconds. He emerges through turn number 6, but he's now starting to feel the pinch of the tyre as he comes into turns 8 and 9. Meanwhile, we look back up to the battle here for P3, and we can see that GTV's Artical closing up, goes aggressively into turn 11, gets the car stopped there, trying to take a bit more of a direct line to the apex, use the camber of the road, plus the fact there's also a little hill in the middle of the apex of turn number 11. It's essentially a little mini ridge line, if you will, turns 11 at apex corner, and as he makes his way on through, they use that to help position the car and get as close as possible to the back of Capham as they make the way through 13, up through 14 into 15 very shortly. And as they come through the double right here, well, the question is now for Capham, can he hold off Artical here, or will Artical find a way on through? As they make the way through turn number 17, up towards 18 they go, and as they make the way into the braking zone here, well, Capham's going to have it all to do because he's not close enough to Skuns to get a tow down the start-finish straight as the race leader of GTV's Anzen goes on to the final lap. As I look at my commentary box window, and now the rest of the top 4 make the way across the line. Capham gets a really good run out of 19, and what that means is he's safe into turn 1, but meanwhile, look in the rear view picture, and there is the delta between MT's Mieso and Kyoju, but even further back here, the battle is on for P7. It's a 4-way fight with Seb72 here. He's got the pressure from what is ATL's GPL Bax, as Bax looks up the inside here a little bit latency, and meanwhile behind we've also got the move coming from Kozel Lifior for ATL versus HRT's Bartek as they go 2 by 2 through turn 2 and up towards turn number 3, but Kozel Lifior there being cut back by Bartek. He looks for it into turn 3, can't quite find it, and as they come through the right hander at turn number 3, will there be any change between the drivers? Not at the moment, although I say that Bartek here looking on the inside into 5. That's a bit bold there because he's on the outside to 6, and Kozel Lifior wastes no time in opening that door up, but there's a little bit of contact between the two of them there, and Bartek's giving the position back, but Seb now vulnerable into turn 8 as Bartek goes all in on the brakes there, and that is brave to go in with that much time wear on the car as he makes his way through 9 up into 10. And as they come up the hill now, you can see here Seb under pressure from Cozy early through, and I don't think Seb's got any tyre left to play with here as they make the way through because he's just not able to put up a defence. They make the way through 12 very shortly, but as they come out of 11 down towards 12, Seb falling away, drops to P10, Micah standing P11, Maverick P12, and as we look to our race leader, meanwhile, well, as he comes to the final corner, he's been absolutely faultless, starting on pole, leading this one. He has not dropped a single lap, and as Anzen crosses the line, here's your winner in race number 1 in Group B for GTE, ahead of what will be GT KRS's Skuns here, as he comes to line P2, the Frenchman, holding off Capam to the line. It's GTV Artical P4, it'll then be MT Mieso completing the top 5 ahead of GTV's Kyoju P6, but what about P7? It will be ATR's GTPL Backs, who comes to the line to hold on to P7 right at the finish, ahead of Bartek from HRT, and then it is Cozy Olifior P9, MT's Micah's P10 complete in the top 10, and then it will be GTV's Maverick 27, who in a difficult race comes on home P11. I'm not sure what's happened to Seb, but Seb has dropped out of the top 10 right at the end. Maverick P11, and then Seb here, well, there's damage to that car. He's literally creeping to the line. Has he run out of fuel, I wonder? We take a look to our data. Yes, he ran out of fuel, so he's had to back off at the end. So he tried to go short on the refuel strategy, but it hasn't worked out, and he finishes last but not least P12. But what a fantastic race, and congratulations to all the drivers, but special congratulations to our race winner from France, and that is GTV's Anzeng, in an absolutely brilliant lights to finish run in P1. As we do wait here for the race to be concluded, I believe our drivers right now on cooldown laps. They make the way on around here. Well, for Skuns in particular, not quite able to take the fight to Anzeng, but having to hold off the fight from Capam and GTV's Articat all the way through. And the question really is now, will it remain like this over the remainder of the races? We've just had race 1, by the way. We've still got 3 more races to go, but Skuns definitely seems to find himself right at the tip of the spear of a very close trio of drivers, and also a little bit further back, MT's Mieso. They're not too far off from the pace in the end, but GTV's Artical, they're just keeping them at bay. And can the Polishman find his way into the hunt over the course of race number 2? You would like to imagine he will, given the run he had in what was race number 1, but a top 5 finish for him all the same there. As we also say hello in the YouTube chat there to GT KRS's Dadako, who is cheering on Skuns, and also at Capam there, and quite a big fan group there for the GT KRS drivers at Skuns and Capam as well. Capam not running the official colours there. I think the livery has not been loaded, but still very happy with how the pair played on through over the course of the race. And as they make the way on through right now, we will very shortly, I believe, be getting the transition over into qualifying session number 2. But a fantastic race from start to finish here. And, well, big talking points in terms of the strategy. We saw the offset between the tyres. The medium tyre only really lasting 5 laps over the course of the race, and making it last the 6th lap. But to be fair, and this is not to besmirch our race winner, he didn't have to defend too much after the opening couple of corners, which meant he could turn things down to a degree and save the tyre a little bit more. But congratulations to the Frenchman. But as we get ready to go racing once again for race number 2, the format will be that we will be closing down this race lobby as I'm to understand it, and then setting up a new lobby. So there will be a 5-minute transition period between the 2 lobbies. But our point there being that with Anzeng having that advantage at the start and breaking away, he was able to save the tyres just a little bit longer because there was less pressure on him to save the tyres, and therefore make them go a 6th lap and essentially cement him taking that lights to finish run in P1. But again, an absolutely superb driver, and I think it's going to be very hard pressed for all of our drivers to try and match that over the remainder of what is the racing tonight. But again, it's just race number 1. Let's not count it out before it's all said and done. But we've got definitely a major battle on our hands for the rest of the podium positions if Anzeng is not reeled in by the rest of the field. But of course, we had qualifying session 1, which was 15 minutes in length. Qualifying session 2 that's coming up, and the remainder of our qualifying sessions will all be 5 minutes in length, and we could see there, with there only really being 2 laps available to our drivers, a shake-up in the order, because our drivers do not have the opportunity to get themselves settled down and put in that one absolutely brilliant lap at the end of the qualifying session. But still, we'll wait to see how that transpires in practice here, as we are awaiting the update with regards to whether we'll be closing on down the lobby. As we say hello there to Pierre Chatura from GTB in the YouTube chat there. Happy to see you as well, Pierre. I hope you're doing well. And indeed, to everybody tuning in right now, if you haven't said hello, don't be shy. Feel free to say hello. But if you can't say hello for whatever reason, hope you're all doing well. Of course, we're at the end of November. Christmas is just around the corner, and I hope you're all set or gradually getting set for your Christmas preparations. And indeed, for our drivers, of course, they'll be looking forward to their Christmases after what's been an absolutely scintillating championship campaign and all the practice that's going in for our drivers year in, year out, and over the course of the months. And as we do wait now to see what's happening here with regards to lobby, well, it is going to be a championship campaign. Regardless of how our drivers end, they'll be giving themselves a pat on the back. And there's the confirmation from 772, our lobby host, that we will be bringing down this lobby. And there it goes, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back in approximately 5 minutes for the build-up to qualifying 2 and race number 2. Don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss it. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back then for race number 2's build-up, of course, preceded by qualifying session number 2. And as our drivers get ready to go into this qualifying session, of course, we're now looking at a 5-minute qualifying session compared to a 15-minute session. What does this mean in terms of changes to the complexion of qualifying? Well, of course, there's less time available. It's a third of what was previously available. But what does that do to you as a driver? Well, even at the highest level, when you reduce the length of the qualifying session, it means now that our drivers have to nail the qualifying laps immediately. There's no tyre wear or fuel consumption, to be fair, in qualifying, so our drivers do not need to worry about that. But what they do need to worry about is finding clear track, finding their line immediately as well. Of course, Gran Turismo 7 being advertised as the racing simulator that's all about finding your line, and it does ring true in these short qualifying sessions. You need to nail it within your first lap, because if you do not, when you go on to that second lap in this qualifying session, given there's only going to be 2 laps afforded, with the lap time around here being 1 minute 40 on average, that means that our drivers will find themselves very hard pressed to improve, and if they do not improve, they may end up qualifying towards the rear of the grid. They may have to go for a compromise strategy. Alternatively, they may end up qualifying out of position, having to battle their way on through. But the problem we've seen, battling your way on through, is tricky here at all top lists, given the fact the circuit's very tight and only really affords 3 major overtaking zones, and then overtaking elsewhere relies on you pressing your opponent into a mistake or trying to capitalise where they open the door for you at the last minute. But as we do wait for all of our drivers to get ready on up here, I believe we are just waiting on GTV's Maverick 27 to join the Canadian driver, join us very shortly. But as we are waiting for our drivers to join, of course, now we can see that everybody making a little bit of light conversation and banter in the lobby chat there. Indeed, all our drivers, and it should be pointed out, that whilst our drivers do take this series very seriously, and it's completely understandable, whilst they are rivals on the circuit, they're friends of the circuit, and it means there is a major community spirit that goes with the circus from round to round, year to year in the GTfusiOn Team World Championship. And well, it's much loved by drivers for that, because at the end of the day, all the teams do come together. And well, again, another thing with regards to how we've worked around things over the course this year with the limitations of Gran Turismo 7 from its initial inception, how it's gradually been improved. A number of the workarounds that were made in order to be able to run this series over the course of the year were not just discovered by the series organisers, but also by the teams doing their own testing and then point out to the organisers, have you tried this in order to have a qualifying session for the lobby X, Y and Z, etc. And in doing so, and everybody sharing all the information and knowledge, it's enabled this series to run over the course of this year and run in the guys that you know and love with regards to the racing round in, round out. But we are just continuing to wait on Maverick here just a little bit longer. He should be joining within the next 1 to 2 minutes. We're coming on to a little bit with regards to the Subaru BRZ GT300 machine. Of course, this car being registered as a Group 3 category car for the purposes of Gran Turismo's manufacturers and nations style races, particularly in the manufacturers. And the manufacturer's grand final occurring as of early this weekend. Now, I do know the result. I'm not going to spoil it for you. I would recommend it if you do want to find out the result. Do check out the official Gran Turismo YouTube page. You can find out there. But what we have seen over the course of this year is that the Subaru BRZ, in terms of its factoring into the balance of performance, has been a car that's been very heavily focused around strategy. So it's been very strong in its tyre wear. It's also been reasonable in its fuel, albeit it has seen some introductions of additional weight, or nerfs as we like to refer to it, in the balance of performance, in order to get the car to wear its tyres a little bit more aggressively. Now, we are hearing that a new lobby is being opened, ladies and gentlemen, so we will just have to be right back. Give us another 5 minutes. We'll be back very shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we return back to lobby once again, and it does seem as though we now have all 12 of our drivers in the lobby, so we have been able to work around the limitations or the issues that have been occurring. We are ready to go, and as we get set to go racing here, we head into qualifying, and well, waiting for our drivers now to get set, and we have to ready up as well to try and work around the potential issues that we did see, of course, in the initial qualifying session, where the qualifying session crashed with the lobby once the lobby had gone through its qualifying period. But we do ready up here. We're going to jump back, of course, once we're out of the circuit. We're going to jump back into the pit lane and particularly run back up to the commentary booth and make sure that we can cover all the qualifying action. We're not going to be participating in the race, although as we head into that qualifying session, very weighty short, and here we go then, going into the 5-minute qualifying session, and now let's jump out of the car. So as we do now spectate our drivers making their way on around, we can see immediately here Article making his way out onto circuit once again, and as we do bring our racing information up, of course now 5 minutes in this qualifying session. Pressure is on all of our drivers here to perform as best as they possibly can as they make their way on through an Article going out immediately. And of course our drivers will have the downtime after this qualifying session of 2 minutes to be able to make any final tweaks to the setup. So everyone will be out in the medium compound here. It is the optimum tyre for qualifying because it does have the pace in the tyre and there's no tyre wear or fuel depletion. But as Article heads on through, meanwhile a lot of our other drivers have quite taken their time making their way out of the pit lane. That has delayed things somewhat, and you can imagine here any drivers who take too long in getting out of the pit lane, they may just find themselves falling out of fashion and not being able to put in multiple laps. They may only just get the 1 lap as the Article heading on down through turn number 11 in towards 12. But meanwhile MT's at Mike is here making his way through turn number 11 now, and as he comes on down, a little bit of a snap oversteer moment there, a little bit of tyre temperature still needing to be picked up as he does have his teammate Mioso just in front here. They're going to try and slipstream off of one another, but look at the traffic jam that is starting to form as they make the way through 12 and 13, and the problem with this is they're all running close together right now because they're all in a rush to get round and get to that start-finish line to make sure they've got 2 laps on the timing screens. But in return, when you're this close, you need to back off at some point, because whilst running in the tow can be quite effective, as we've seen at other circuits over the course of the season, and now you're starting to see everybody separating out and backing off of one another to give one another space. Around here, being in the tow can be very tricky to deal with because it will induce a lot of front end understeer. But speaking of that front end here, he'll want to have the front end pointed as best as possible, but we ride on board with GTfusiOn Maverick as he takes us around for his first qualifying lap. And we ride on board here with the driver from the perspective just over the hood of the car as he makes his way down into turn number 1. Now rolling on through turn 1 in 3rd gear there, a little bit of soil being taken with the left-hand tyres, but still carrying the speed on through. That's not going to compromise him too much as he makes his way down towards turn number 3 from 6th down towards 4th gear here. Deciding to go down to 4th so that way he can power out and into turns 4 and 5, drop into 3rd here. And I think this may be the more sensible decision to drop into 3rd before rolling into 2nd gear to go into turn number 6. You can see in the sequence, car stepping away a little bit there as he has to get on the power. That's cost him a bit of time. That's cost him about half a tenth. As he makes his way into 8 and 9, 4th gear all the way through, balance on the front. And as soon as he feels the front end point in and he looks at his reference marker, which has been the marshal's post on the right hand side, he'll get back on the throttle, full power up towards turn number 11. Into the braking zone for the 2nd hairpin, then going all the way down to 1st gear, points the car out the corner, get back on the throttle, upshift to 2nd early, get the power deployment, and now charge up through the gearbox as he makes way out towards 5th gear, and now braking down into turn number 12. And as he comes on through the right hand again, goes a little bit wide there, but it's not going to bleed him any time as he carries as much speed as possible into 13. Switch back here to left-hander of 14, straight lines between 14 and the first part of 15, onto the brakes trail, braking down, drops to 2nd gear, and now powers out up to 3rd gear. A nice early short shift there, gets the power down, traction into 4th gear, rolls it through into 4th gear, through turn number 17, and now into 18 he goes. 3rd gear here, you can see having to battle with the car as he tries to get the power deployed, comes down to the final corners. And what's it going to be for Maverick as he comes to timeline here? Well, it's going to be what is a 140.874. That's provisional P2 so far. A good lap there from the Canadian, and well, definitely worth the wait in terms of making sure he can get into lobby, because right now he's setting those timing screens on fire. Not quite as fast as Capham, to be fair, as we see Capham has gone provisional pole on the first lap with what is a 140.765. 2.5, only a tenth faster, but still, this is what happens in these shorter qualifying sessions. It leads to a mix-up in the field as An Zheng able to go pole there, takes the provisional pole, only what is 800ths faster, but still 800ths or 100 for 1,000, it's enough. And as he comes on through turn 1 once again, and the GTE driver here definitely trying to fly high as he makes his way down into turn number 3. But as he rolls his way on through the right hander, looking good as he comes up towards 4, 5 and then into 6. Now can he raise the bar a little bit higher here? Because everyone will be improving on their second lap, or aiming to improve unless they make a major error. But meanwhile, besides the car that's in the pit lane, which is of course our own that we've had to enter him, at the bottom of the stands at the moment is ATR's Jose Lefior as he makes his way out through turn number 11. The Polishman here on a 42.196, improving, but he won't be improving when he loses it. Coming out of turn number 11, and you can just see it as he tried to get the power down. Got the power down a little bit too frivolously with the car understeering wide out beyond the exit curving. Wheel on the grass to the rear right tyre just lighting up, and Cozy Lefior will be starting at the back of the field. But meanwhile, Artical goes provisional pole there with 40.608. Who else is going to improve? As meanwhile, Capam goes up to P3 with a 40.7. And Zhang meanwhile rolling his way on through here, 40.686 so far. Can he improve even further here and dethrone his teammate from pole position? Of course, these two were exchanging lap times in the first qualifying session, exchanging places on that front row. But can An Zheng get back on pole, or will it go the way of the Belgian as he makes his way to the timeline here? Skuns goes P3, An Zheng comes to the line, and it's enough. It's a 40.325. He will take provisional pole. Who else improves? Nobody else seems to be improving here, and it is An Zheng from GTB who takes pole position then by almost 3 tenths over GT's Artical. P2 there, the Belgian. It will then be GTK Racing Skuns who lines up P3, started off the second row, joined by Capam on that second row there, P4. The difference between the two of them just shy of 400ths, and then look at that, it was 200ths to get onto row 2 for Bartek from HRT, who'll be starting P5 on row 3 with his fellow countryman of GTL Bax from ATR also on the third row. And then we'll have GTB Maverick, who looked strong in the start of the qualifying session but dropped down on the second lap. He starts P7, better than his qualifying session in race number 1. MT's Mieso there starts P8, and then it will be GTB's Kyoju who starts P9, joined by Seb from GTB on the 5th row. And then we will have MT Mikas who starts P11 on the 6th row, being joined by Cozy Lefior from ATR, and that is how your grid will be. But the biggest surprise there, Cozy Lefior just not able to hook it up in qualifying perhaps as we transition over to the race. Well, of course, before we can make our final transition, we are right now in the preparation phase. Our drivers do have 2 minutes now to tweak their setups. And, of course, this is where we now have the question of who goes for what on the strategy. Those qualifying times confirmed on the right-hand side of your screen. Now, what we're thinking here is we're likely to see the same split as what we saw previously in terms of a certain set of front runners or top 5 will be running the medium, and then it'll be the hards further back. But what is the cutoff point for that strategy? And do we potentially see a driver who's starting up towards the front, such as, let's say, Skuns, for example, P3? Does he gamble by starting on the hard, and in doing so, try to give himself better times towards the end of the race to hunt down Artical and also An Zheng? Because looking at the deltas, An Zheng seems to have about a 3 tenths of a second a lap advantage in qualifying that translates over into the race. But Artical, again, only a tenth faster, and that tenth, I think, is more just nailing the lap rather than it being an inherent tenth in advantage. And that's what Skuns has got to think. It's the same for Capam. It's the same for Bartek, because you look at that P3 through to P5 cluster there, only 600ths between the trio, and then we've got almost a further tenth to backs behind. If any of them were to gamble on strategy, it could really shake up their fortunes and see them on that podium at the finish, and that's what we'll be looking for as we go deeper and deeper into race number 2. Who's willing to gamble on the strategy? We've got quite a southerly wind as well. Wind's blowing to the south, and that will be cost our drivers a little bit of a run on some of the straights. In fact, it'll give them a boost in the run down towards turn 12, but it also means they're carrying a bit more speed into the braking zone, and they've got to be careful of that for turn 12. But as our drivers get ready to go, we look to the YouTube chat there and say a good evening to Pepsi GT, the GTB driver who, as we mentioned earlier, not able to join us as of this round due to personal circumstances. But Pepsi, we're glad to see you tuning in and supporting GTBE, and we hope you're doing the best you can, good sir, as we do miss seeing you out on the tarmac. But as all of our drivers give the thumbs up and say say they are ready. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are ready then to go racing for race number 2 of 4 in Group B's round number 6 of the GTfusiOn Team World Championship for 2022. And as we do just continue to wait the countdown here, that countdown will start very shortly. I think our host is just being given the thumbs up from everybody to say they can go, go, go. And it's lights out and away we go. But we are just waiting on that countdown at the moment. Of course, we will technically be placed on the grid. We'll do everything we can to make sure we pull off of the grid as soon as possible. But I can see there a little bit of mix up there. I think Artical just forgetting that he is now the host of this lobby and not Seb72 because they did have to switch the host around. You can see there. Again, these little things do happen, but everybody patient. And here we go then, ladies and gentlemen. Here's the countdown for race number 2. We make our way to the grid. So as our drivers line up here with Anse and Artical line up on that front row, so GTB lockout once again. Watch out for Skuns behind as we jump off of the grid and make our way into the spectator room. And it's lights out and away we go here for race number 2 as Angzen gets a great start off the line there, but looking a bit farther back, we have got one of our Polish drivers that are looking for the move into turn number 1. I believe that's Bartek, and Bartek with a flying start here, moves 3 places into turn number 1, and whereas it was a little bit of a crash course into turn 1 in race number 1 for a number of drivers, they've all safely made it through this time around, and Bartek is flying, but there's a bit of contact, and Bartek is coming very hot, and in return, Kapam has been forced very wide, as Kapam tries to fight his way back into turns 4 and 5. Side by side with Baxi as they come through into turn 6, and as they do, now the problem is, of course, for our drivers, as they make the way through their hairpin, can they balance it out? Skuns has dropped behind, but an absolute flying start from Bartek. There's no doubt about the HRT driver. Well, I don't know what they fitted to the car in terms of launch control, but I think it's standing like all the others, and those reaction times absolutely superb. But as they make the way up in towards turn number 11 for the first time asking, we can see here a bit further behind Seb and Kyoju road blocking affecting Micas, but Micas looking up the inside as Kyoju going a little bit deep into turn number 11 there, and that's going to put some distance between the two drivers, and indeed put the MTE drive between the GTB drivers as they make their way down into turn number 12. As they come running through, we bring the race data now up on screen for you, so that way you can keep track of the order of drivers as they stand. But as they make the way into the latter half of this lap, of course, now we see the serpentine sequence, of course, the turns 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 and 19 to wrap up the lap. And Seb right now really seeming to struggle on pace, and I wonder if Seb's gone for the hard tyre and whether some of the drivers behind, such as Micas, the MTE machine, have gone for the medium. And right now Seb is being used as a rolling roadblock here to try and space the field out. Well, to be fair, as long as he drives fairly and doesn't intentionally drive slowly or dangerously, they can do that, of course, and that's why it's a team's championship. They can go for the swap strategies. But meanwhile, we look coming down towards turn number 1 here, and Bartek under pressure from GTPL. Bax represents ATR, side by side they go. Bax around the outside, and he makes it count, and Bax comes through into P3 with a daring move of his own into turn number 1, whereas moments ago on lap number 1, it was Bartek who literally made his way through the field like a knife through hot butter there off the line. Unfortunately, we can't get you a replay of that. We would have loved to have seen a replay of his launch off the line, but Bartek right now really pushing on as they make the way through turn number 6. But as they come through and now up towards 7, 8 and 9, things are settling down inside the top 6, there's no doubt about it. But then P7 Drive GTB Maverick here between the rock and a hard place, not quite close enough to the top 6, not quite falling back into the clutches of the battle for P8, although it's not too far behind. I think Seb72 won't mind the fact that he does have his teammate only 8 attempts up the road, for the simple reason he'll be getting a distant tow as they break the way into turn number 11. Of course, the aerodynamics and the slipstream effects have been recently revised again in Gran Turismo 7. The slipstream distance now being felt out a little bit beyond 3/4 of a second, I think up to almost a second, as they make their way into the braking zone here. We can see Kyoju defending versus Koziali Fior, as meanwhile Mike is battling with Seb on the inside into 13. He gets it done there, and the MTE driver gains a vital position, and I think he's got a lot of pace at his fingertips there as the Polish, but he's been waiting to make that move for some time. Meanwhile, Kyoju here having to hold off Koziali Fior, as meanwhile Mioso a lot further back here in P12, having had a difficult start to his race. It's not gone the way he's wanted it to as he makes his way up the hill. But meanwhile, looking at the back of the field to our race leader here, Anzen continues to lead by 9 tenths of a second. And the thing for him now as well is he can really back things off at this point and protect the car once again. Much like what we talked about in race number 1, he ran 6 laps on the medium tyre, whereas every other medium runner ran 5 laps at most. And that was because Anzen had the space where he could back off the tyre, really be gentle on the brakes into the heavier braking zones. And that's what it's all about, tyre preservation. It's the slip angle of the tyre not being abused, and at the same time as well, not trying to retard the car too aggressively on the tyre compound, particularly the front. But meanwhile, we can see here GTV's Artical continue to press on, as meanwhile ATR's Bax here trying to chase down the Belgian, and right now it is Bax who's breaking away from Bartek as they make the way through turns 7, 8 and 9 again with Skuns here in P5. Well, right now Skuns, after what's a bit of a shocker of a start in terms he had a reasonable launch off the line, but I don't think anybody could have seen Bartek coming through like a missile into turns 1 and 3. Well, right now Skuns is focusing more on the strategy rather than press it on, with Capab just behind the beef outfit. These two are working together and try to fuel save off of one another and run their pace to protect their tyres in order to make sure they can definitely do 5 laps on that medium comfortably, but also perhaps go a 6th lap if the opportunity is there. Meanwhile, Maverick continues to fall back, and now you can see here the GTBE driver under pressure from MT's Micah as they make the way through turn number 13. And we ride on board here with the P8 driver as he makes his way up the hill, clutching over the curbs of turns 14 and 15. And that's the way you want to do it. As we see Maverick goes a bit deep there, but Micah's not able to capitalise, getting a bit too close to the apex of turn 15. And as they roll the way out to the corners and now down to the braking zone for turn 18, you see rolling the way through the long right hand, and Maverick just does not seem to be too comfortable with the car. Although I say that he can afford to go deep, but he's getting really good power on exit coming out of 18 into 19 there. So I think Maverick has got a car that can run a bit deeper into these corners and not lose too much time. Meanwhile, Mike has taken a very discreet, very sensitive line through those corners, of course, having to deal with the dirty air coming off of the car in front of him. That will not be helping the amount of understeer he feels through the corners as the tyre wear accumulates. But right now, staying in the hunt as he makes his way down towards turn number 3. But in the run they go, and as they do into the braking zone here, we can see Step2 not too far behind either. Ryoju now 1.2 seconds back as they go on to lap number 4, and then Cozy Fior here after a difficult qualified session. Well, again, it's very interesting to see how Cozy Fior just does not seem to have the lap time in qualifying, but in the race he's able to hang on to the back end of the top 10, and that goes to show you that he's focused a lot on the race setup of the car and the race pace rather than the qualifying paces. Meanwhile, MT's Miyoso here is lapping approximately 1 to 1.5 seconds a lap faster than P10, P11, but he's still 5.3 seconds off the 2 aforementioned positions as he makes his way through turns 9 up towards 10 and 11. As they make the way down towards turn number 11 here into the braking zone, we do look from them to Anzeng here, who continues to hold the lead, and we take a look in particular to what is the tyre and also the tyre life that our drivers now have, and well, what strategies we can see coming. While race leader, as we suspected, on the medium compound there, and those tyres look as though they'll definitely be doing a 5th lap. I'm not sure if they're going to be doing a 6th lap this time, unless he really drives so sensibly on that 6th lap. But again, Anzeng, I think, will go for it if he sees that everybody behind him does peel off on lap number 5 into the pits. And meanwhile, Artical here definitely will only be doing 5 laps on those tyres. I don't think he can go any further, using a lot of fuel as well compared to Anzeng. And then we can see here GTBL Bax from ATR using even more tyre and fuel. Look at the fuel. And I wouldn't be surprised if for GTBL Bax he may have to take an extended fuel stop, and that's going to cost him positions, as we see Bartek meanwhile really wearing down those tyres. The fuel less of a concern, but that front left where he's pushed so hard on the opening 2 laps trying to consecrate that P3 position in the end dropping to P4, it's cost him a lot of tyre life, as meanwhile Skuns and also Kapan both struggling for tyre life, both trying to work together on the fuel situation. And you can see Skuns, interesting enough, has actually got a little bit more fuel compared to Capam. So I think Capam here is having to use the fuel to get close as they press on and make their way through turns 8 to 9. And I would have thought it would have been the other way round, but lo and behold, it is the way it is. And we can see that Skuns here right now has been doing a fantastic job on the fuel preservation, and Capam staying behind him here, as meanwhile Maverick using a lot more fuel compared to our top 6 as he makes way into the braking zone, but on the hard tyre here, interestingly. So Maverick, the first of our hard runners, as we do just double check with Capam and also Skuns. Yes, they're both medium runners, but definitely Maverick here on the hard compound. And as he makes his way down into turn number 12, well, Maverick has bought himself a nice amount of room because he has got 3 seconds to the medium runner of MT Micas here. And this is where the strategy split occurs, because Micas, you can see, has worn these tyres down so aggressively aggressively on these opening 5 laps. And he's got nothing left on the tyre compound when he comes to the end of this lap. And meanwhile, Seb behind on the hard, and well, he's found himself clustered in behind the Polishman. And right now, he wants to try and find his way on through, and the irony being, of course, that he's on the less optimal tyre with regards to lap time, but he's got all the lap time in the world as he goes all the way around the outside, and now that is brave from Seb to go around the outside to get the move done. He'll do one more lap, but you can see there the grip level being afforded to the hard driver, and I think that's the move of the day so far. I mean, Bartek, to be fair, had a brilliant run into turn number 1, but Seb there with a brave move, as meanwhile Kyoji follows him on the hard compound. A lot more hard life left in the tyre there, and then we do see Fior staying with them. He's got quite a bit of tyre life ready as well, and also on the fuel situation, he's actually a little bit off of the 2 in front of him in terms of fuel. As you can see there, Kyoji being let on through by Seb. Seb falling off the cliff of the tyres now compared to Kyoji, as we see Fior trying to go around outside to inside versus Seb 72. A little bit of contact there into turn 6. But he gets it done as they power on out. Now, meanwhile, the only medium runner, excuse me, as we see here, Fior coming through, but meanwhile being boxed in there by the 2 GTE drivers, and as they make the way out of turns 8, 9 up towards 10, Fior, they're getting back ahead of Seb, but Seb taking the fight too, and you can see how they're battling tooth and nail for each and every corner here. They want track position before coming into the pits. They see it as vital, but now as they make the way on down towards turn number 12, this is the battle in towards the right hand for P4 on circuit. We believe it's a bit further down the order, approximately P8 once they come out of the pit lane. Fior finally securing that P4 position and getting ahead of Seb 72. Meanwhile, the only driver out of our original and medium starters to be out there still is Anzeng, who is going to the end of this 6th lap here. He's gambling on running this long in the medium. Of course, one mistake could cause it all to unfold in an upsetting manner, but not so as he comes into the pit lane here. And what a brilliant opening stint for the race leader and the pole sitter, as Maverick will come on through to complete his stint on the hard tyres. Now we'll see the hard runners coming in. Maverick comes on in, Ryojo as well, Fior comes in. None of them decide to go a 7th lap on the hard. They've all wanted to get off of that hard tyre, and then we can see here what is MTE and Mieso coming on through. What about Artical? Well, Artical right now crosses the line, and we suspect he will come back out in P2 with Anzeng already cleared, but look at this, Anzeng running 1 lap longer on the medium. And whereas he had that brilliant start in race number 1 and was not hindered by the contact that happened behind, now, where the fact that most drivers actually had a relatively calmer start to this race, despite the moves being made into turns 1 and 3, well, they were great moves to be fair, being made by Bartek. We can see here that Artical was caught right up behind his teammate, and as they make the one around right now, well, Anzeng has underfueled as well considerably here. So as Anzeng had to short fuel in order to hold track position, that's the question, as they make the way on through turns 8 and 9. Meanwhile, GTBL Bax has re-emerged in P3 on the hard tyre, with Bartek behind him in P4, but the gap has opened up between the two of them to 4.3 seconds, and that goes to show you how Bartek, using a lot more fuel, has lost out. Then we have GT Carrot's Skuns here, P5, just ahead of Capam. As they make their way down to the braking zone here, Skuns still ahead of Kappa. These two continue to work together. Maverick, meanwhile, now on the medium. Now Maverick is going to be the interesting driver here in the hunt for a top 5, because you would think on paper he will be faster than Skuns and Kappa, who are both, of course, on that hard compound. They will have the tyre life at the end of the race. So right now Maverick has to decide, does he save the tyre now and go on the offensive in the final 2 laps, or does he go offensive now and then look to save the tyres once he's converted the positions, if he can convert the positions. Ryoju, meanwhile, 5 seconds back in P8 onto the medium. Well, 1.4 second advantage over MT's Micas here, who's now on the hard tyre. And well, you can imagine here, that hard tyre's not going to help him as he comes through 15 to 16. Seb looks at the move. He can't quite find it there, and has to back out through 16 to 17 as they make the way through the left into right complex. We've got a yellow flag ahead. A driver has gone off, I believe, albeit temporarily at turn 18. We're not quite sure what's happened. In fact, hold up a second. Anzeng went off at turn 18. And he's dropped all the way down the order. Now, we haven't seen what's happened, but the GTB driver, who is leading, albeit with GTB Article right behind him, his teammate, he's dropped to P7, and now this massively opens up the racing order, because now he's going to have to try and fight his way back through the field, and to be fair, he's got the pace, I think, to try and hunt down a top 5 finish here. But now with that in mind, we can see that battling for P9 is only intensifying as well, with Iguchi being clear of this. Seb trying to make the move here. Koziel, if you're getting into the mix as well, it's the two Polishmen and the Frenchman all fighting to be offered what is being outside the top 10 as they come on out of turn 6. Seb cuts out of the inside and gets the move done for P9 temporarily. But will there be a counter-attack here from the MTE driver as they make the way through turns 8 to 9 and up towards 11 they go? Not currently. Micah Steele part behind as they make the way up towards the braking zone, but at any moment it could turn. There's no doubt about that as they come through turn number 11. And Koziel, if you're right now, really I think trying to turn it up a notch as they make the way down towards turn number 12. And also think about this, MT's Mieso, who was at one point over 5 to 6 seconds off of the pack, now sits only 1.1 seconds off on the medium tyre here and is trying to hunt down a potential top 10 finish. But we look to our race leader here of GTV's Artical as he makes around and we clear the tyre data off screen now and also the telemetry data, so that way you can focus on the race lap times and also what is the positions of our drivers. And as Artical makes his way down the start finish straight here, 1.6 seconds clear, where he's got GTVL Bax from Team ATR closing little by little, and it is Bax who on that last lap was actually almost a second slower than Artical. Although I say that, I think Artical, in fact, that data may not be correct, to be fair. In fact, it does look as though Bax is closing up to Artical, so you have to forgive me for my incorrect information there, and we've had it updated. And Artical on that last lap losing a couple of attempts, and Bax is closing as they make the way into turn number 6. And can Bax make the final ground to be able to go on the offensive on the last couple of laps? So they've only got 3 to go, including this lap, so he's not got long in the tail, and he's going to have to find a way to bring that gap down to a second at the end of this lap, ideally, if he wants to have the run on the final 2 laps. Meanwhile, Bartek behind is continuing to fall back. He's falling backwards towards Skuns right now, who has dropped Capham. In fact, Capham's had an off somewhere because Maverick has found his way up into P5. And remember that Maverick is on the medium compared to these guys being on the hard. Maverick's picked off one already. To be fair, he may have made an overtake. We just have not seen it on camera. And as they make the way down towards turn number 12, Maverick is really pushing on right now. He's not the fastest man on circuit in terms of fastest lap, but he's definitely one of the faster drivers on circuit at this point in the race. Of course, those medium tyres will only last so long before they start to fall off, but as he comes on through what is turn at number 14, 15 he goes. You can see here Maverick size up and move on Skuns. He'll be looking for it into turn number 1, and Skuns will have to be wary of this because right now Maverick definitely pushing on really hard and fast in terms of trying to hunt down not will be just P4, but he's looking for that P3. He wants to be on the podium here, does the Canadian, as he comes on through the right-hander at turn 18 into 19 he goes. He's right there, but a little bit of an oversteering moment, just taking a bit too much of the curving, cost him the run he needs. He's in the draft, but I think he's too far back here unless he decides to send it from 3 tenths back. I think that'd be unwise given the way that turn 1 tapers towards the apex, and he has to wait. He tries to get a better run coming out of 1, but Skuns, to be fair, gets a good run as well. And you can see as they come through the kink of 2, Maverick not close enough to force the issue here, and he'll have to wait again. And the problem is now, as we're on lap 10, those medium tyres are now starting to turn against Maverick. The GTB driver now has to worry about preserving the tyres just a little bit longer. He can look at the move, he looks up the inside, Skuns there, flicking out to the outside and then back in. That's the way you go into turn number 6, normally on a fast lap. Then open up the door, he's invited Maverick to get his nose in there. Maverick goes deep into 8-9. He looks at the cutback through 9, gets on the power nice and early, but Skuns covers him off here as we ride on board from the cockpit camera, indeed the helmet camera here of Maverick as he looks at a move. He's looking at the inside, he goes for it late on the brakes, and it may just be enough as he comes on through. Skuns tries to get the cut back over the apex curve. That no can do, says Maverick, as he makes sure to cover it off. And GTB's Maverick is now to P4 with a late move under braking, but to be fair, the door was open, and I think Skuns knew it was going to come. He looked for the cutback, and Maverick now just needs to try and hunt down one more place. It's 1.2 seconds away, and it's held by this man representing HRT. It's Bartek F99 as he makes his way through the right-hander of what is turn 15 into 16. But of course, Maverick has taken a lot out of those tyres to get to where he is. Has he got enough left to make one more move? Well, meanwhile, looking up the road, we can see here that GTBL's backs on this last lap has actually fallen away a little bit from Artical, a 143.841 versus Artical at 143.370. Artical right now from GTB is looking to bring this one on home for the team. Of course, Anzeng bringing it home in race number 1 for the team, but now the pressure is on for him to do it, where his teammate has fallen by the wayside with an error early on in his second stint. But we can see here that Maverick is closing. 8 tenths is the gap, little by little. Further back, Skuns P5, Captain P6, P6 as he falls a little bit further off of the top 5. Anzeng in P7 here, holding on to this P7 position, but he has got Seb 72 and Cozy Lefior on the offensive behind him. Cozy Lefior looking up the inside into turn 3. Seb gives him the space, but I think the tyres are going for Seb, and Cozy Lefior hanging around the outside of 4 and 5. Can he hold it to the inside of 6? I think he can, as he goes in quite aggressively into the corner, and Anzeng has fallen. Oh goodness me, and what on earth has happened here? And Anzeng has just parked up. I'm not sure what's happened. Has he run out of fuel? No, he's got damage, and he's just parked it there to let people on through. I think there was some contact at some point, but Anzeng there with damage, and now he drops all the way down to last place, and it's not good news for Anzeng at all as he gets back up to speed. But meanwhile, with that, things have calmed down somewhat now. And the big question is, the last big battle is between Maverick and Bartek to the line here in the battle for P3. Was they coming through turn number 15? Maverick pushing on here, crusading to try and get that third spot on the podium, but it's not long to go. And speaking of not long to go, he's got not long to the finish line. Well, here he comes. He is your winner in race number 2. It's GTV's Artical from Belgium who takes the win ahead of ATR's GTPL backs, and it will be Bartek to the line who secures the third spot on the podium ahead of GTV's Maverick. And then we have Skuns P5, Capan P6, it'll then be ATR Cozy Lefior P7 as he comes across the line there, and then it will be Seb 72 who brings it home P8 ahead of MT's Mieso P9, and then we'll have MT's Micah's P10 there completing the top 10 ahead of Kyoju in P11 as he comes to the finish line here ahead of teammate and the driver who's expected to win, but it's not gone that way. And saying the 2 GTV drivers there finishing P11, P12, but what a race from GTV's Artical. Absolutely nailing it. Now, we don't know what happened to Anzeng. Was there contact between Artical and Anzeng? We suspect not, but at the same time, Artical picking up the pieces where it went wrong for his teammate, but big credit is due as well to GTPL backs, representing, of course, ATR for the P2 drive and keeping Artical honest throughout it all, but he just did not have the lap pace towards the end of the second stint, and Bartek holding off the charge at GT's Maverick there for HRT after that absolutely brilliant launch off the line. There's no doubt about it. That launch at the very start aided him in the run to gain this P3 at the end of the race, and Maverick on the off strategy compared to his peers, running the hard early and getting himself space to go onto the medium has worked well. And I wouldn't be surprised if some teams are looking at the strategy that Maverick's just run and looking at deploying it in races 3 or 4, because it has worked a treat for a driver who started in the midfield after a great qualifying session starting P7, and he's used it to gain 3 places. Of course, there were other circumstances which have led to that, but nobody can deny that Maverick there making the strategy count. Skuns not having the race he wanted, a top 5 finish definitely, but I think for the Frenchman there, hoping for a little bit more, but it wasn't to be. And the same for Capam in the end, as Cozy Lefior gaining P7 at the finish, having started from the back of the field. And Cozy Lefior definitely finding his pace in the race, just not in qualifying. It just does not seem to be there in the qualifying sessions. Not sure why, to be fair, because he's showing that he's definitely got the strategic nuance nailed down, in particular that run the medium and the hard tyre. Seb 72 P8 there, just a difficult race for Seb, but battling in the midfield, enjoying the battling, but I think he was hoping for a little bit more. And the MTE period of Mieso and Micah's there, both P9, P10, not their race in this one, both having difficult starts to their race and it being difficult all the way to the finish. Kyoju P11 with Anzeng P12, and the biggest shock, of course, our winner in race 1, finishing last in race 2 with an instant that we didn't see on camera, dropping him down to P7, and a further instant which we didn't see on camera. We only caught the tail end of it, seeing him drop down to the back of the field, and well, I'm sure that will be investigated post round. But I mean, well, credit is due, where one GTB driver fell, another has arisen to the top step, and it's GTB Artical who will be very shortly celebrating the victory of Here We Go. So congratulations to GTV Artical there for a fantastic drive to victory. And well, as we bring up our lobby screen here, that was race number 2, ladies and gentlemen. And well, we've had our big talking points, particularly the upset with regards to our predicted race winner based on qualifying pace and the race start. But also what we did get to see there was a new strategy coming on through with regards to the starting on the hard tyre in the midfield ahead of some medium runners. And GTV's Maverick 27 showing you can gain places by running on the opposite compound. And as I say, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a driver such as Guns or Capam decide to try and capitalise on that in race 3 or race 4 by opting to start on the hard and trying to back the medium runners behind them up, so that way they can then go to the medium tight and hunt down the drivers ahead later on. But now, as we can see there on screen, our drivers are saying, is there going to be a 10-minute break? There definitely will be, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go for a 10-minute break. We will be back approximately what will be, if I just check the clock there, what will be about 7 minutes past 8 GMT, that's Greenwich Mean Time, or Universal Coordinated Time, UTC, in the United Kingdom time zone. And we will be getting ready to go racing once again for race 3, preceded by qualifying 3. Don't go too far, ladies and gentlemen. Go grab a cup of tea. Go grab yourself a snack, definitely. But you may also want to grab yourself some popcorn, because given the way races 1 and 2 have played out, we've still got plenty of racing to come for race 3 and 4. And we'll be back very soon to bring it all to you live and broadcasted on air. So as we return, ladies and gentlemen, in preparation for qualifying session number 3 and race 3 that follows, we heard briefly there from X-Hype, our title sponsor for this series, the place to be to go racing, of course. And as we do get ready to go racing once again here, will now our drivers, of course, being marshalled to the pit lane. We're still waiting on 2 more drivers to arrive in the lobby, but we should be back underway within the next 5 minutes or so. And of course, this third qualifying session, again, being 5 minutes in length. There's only really 2 laps available for our drivers to put in their best possible times, but then we'll have an 11-lap race after that, and then another 5-minute qualifying session in the build-up to race number 4, which will be 11 laps. We've seen the theme time and time again with regards to these qualifying sessions being that nailing those laps from the outset is of utmost importance, and now, of course, we transition into the second half of round number 6 for Group B. Tired arms and legs will start to arise. Indeed, the fatigue will start to settle in a little bit, and that may just lead to 1 or 2 mistakes on those drivers who are normally very reliable with being able to deliver their laps. And in return, could we potentially see a new pole sitter? Of course, pole position has twice gone to Anzang, the GTE driver. Can he still make it 3 out of 3, or will we finally see a new pole sitter? Indeed, will we see a new combination on that front row? We've always seen a GTE driver on the front row. Could we potentially see one of them be locked on out? Well, we are still waiting for 1 more driver to join the lobby. I believe we now have our 11th driver and then 1 more to come, and then we are good to go into this qualifying session. Now, of course, a little bit of an emotional point with it being the end of a season, and the fact that now our drivers will be thinking about what's next. We'll tell you a little bit more about what's to come in 2023 at the end of today's broadcast. But indeed, that big campaign over the course of the season, all of our drivers tried to deliver round after round in the practice sessions, qualifying and going into the race, and it's all coming to a close. And as the curtain comes on down, they all want to end on the best possible high they can. As we now do have all 12 out of 12 drivers into lobby, we're just waiting for Maverick to ready up for GTE, and then we will be heading into our 5-minute qualifying session. Now, a little bit earlier, you remember that I talked about the circuit, the Autopolis circuit, going through multiple owners in the past, and I said that it's had a more stable owner recently. Well, my years aren't quite right in the fact that it's actually had a stable owner since 2005, and that is Kawasaki, who have purchased and currently hold the rights to the Autopolis International Racing Course circuit. But as we now do have the thumbs up from everybody, in fact, we are missing a driver as it transpires, and that is their MTA Mika, and at the end I think it's the case that the MTE driver will not be joining us, unfortunately, and so we will be missing 1 of our 12 drivers here, but everybody is readied up and we will be heading in to qualifying. Of course, when we get taken into the paddock, we'll be jumping out of the car, heading back into the commentary booths. That way we can see how our drivers get on. But it's unfortunate that we have had 1 retirement from at least this qualifying session, potentially race number 3, but we'll have to wait to see if the MTE driver can arrive in time. And as we do transition over to qualifying then, it's 5 minutes and it's away we go for all of our drivers. As we do say hello in the YouTube chat there to Zigchical's finest indeed. Zigchical, hope you're doing well there. And I believe cheering on ATR. But as we go to our spectator cams here, all of our drivers making their way out of the pit lane. And it is our GTV's Artical who is the first to make their way out of aforementioned pit lane as he heads his way down into turn number 1. Now, of course, much like before, I suspect all our drivers will be racing around for the first half of this lap, already the first 3/4 of this lap, to try and get themselves into that final sector to make sure they guarantee they've got 2 laps of qualifying available to them. And then we'll see the field space out a little bit. Of course, Artical will not have to worry about spacing out because he is the lead driver and therefore he has authority to the race in line in this qualifying session. But everybody else behind will then start to back off a little bit and normally give themselves, on average, 2 to 3 seconds worth of space in order to be able to have that breathing room. If the driver in front makes a mistake, they may not be too heavily compromised. As we also say hello there in the YouTube chat to Lucas Policha, who's saying Forza Arrows, and welcome in to you, Lucas. I hope you're doing well. It's great to see so many of you tuning in as always. And well, as we see our 2 GTV drivers heading on down the ground, we see our next driver making their way around the field is another GT Carros Skuns as he heads on down the braking zone here into turn number 12. Of course, Skuns, I think, a little bit of a dark horse in this one in terms of you need to keep your eyes on him because he has been thwarted from being on that front row twice, only by a very small margin, and I don't think he'll want that to happen thrice as he makes his way through turns 14 and 15. And Bartek behind as well. Bartek very strong off the launch, and everyone now will be very savvy to the HRT driver's absolutely phenomenal launch off the line, as in fact he backs out there, interestingly enough, coming out of 15 and 16. The car didn't look like it was going wayward. Perhaps he felt it was, or he just wants to tuck in behind and give himself a bit more room. So there's quite a gap opening up behind Bartek, in fact, and well, as we see Maverick making his way on through turn at number 70, you see everybody now really turning it down here because they do not want to come across with one another. And Mieso just literally comes on through and says, well, I'm going to throw a hammer into that. I want to get round as soon as possible here. So the MT Mieso here definitely not waiting for anybody, and in fact, because he doesn't want to wait, we're going to be jumping on board here for his first flying lap of this qualifying session as he takes us down towards turn number 1. So heading up towards the braking zone here, looking to his left hand side forwards the 100 meter board and just braking after it about 75 to 80 meters, going down to third gear now, powering out of 1 through 2, he goes completely flat out, gradually letting the car roll over to the left hand side here for 3, braking there at the marshal's post on the left hand side, down to second gear, up to third there, very different approach to the corner, and as he comes through 4 5, just lifting the throttle, letting the car go out a little bit here, we're coming into 6, bringing the car into the centre of the road, braking all the way down to first gear, but going deep, powering out, now taking a V-shape apex, he makes his way for the right-hander of 7, and now down into 8 and 9 here, staying in third, up to 4th, as he clears the turn 8 apex there to help settle the car, and as he powers through turn number 10, now up towards 11 here. It's been a relatively good lap so far, albeit a bit of a jagged approach to lap compared to what we've seen from other drivers in terms of gear selection, but again, if it works, it works, and as Mieso makes his way out to 11 and down towards 12 here, now building up through the gearbox once again, short shifting up to 4th gear, now braking down in point, staying in 4th gear, but breaking down the speed there as he comes into 13. Does he drop to 3rd here? No, he decides to stay in 4th and balance on the throttle. We'll head into 14, full commitment over the curb, into the first part 50, goes down to 3rd, down to 2nd here, quick shifting down, then back shifting up to 3rd as he settles the car into the run through 15 to 16, now into 17 here, 3rd gear, all the way for a bit of apex curve being taken as he goes up to 4th now into turn 18. Will he drop to 3rd? Well, there's a bit of latency there, and oh goodness me, Maverick's appeared out of nowhere, so I'm not exactly sure what's happened there, but Mieso, I think, with a little bit of latency, has had to back off, so that was unexpected and not in a positive way, I can tell you that. But Mieso in the end of 44.585, but again, that was a little bit of an oddity as we now just bring the race data up and appreciate the lap that we've rode on board with the MTE driver. But as we see Anzang making their way on around the last driver here to set their first flying lap. What's it going to be for his first lap? Normally he's quick off the marks, and indeed he is. 2.5 tenths faster than the rest of the field. Anzang from G2E, they're continuing the trend of making it 3 out of 3 at pole positions potentially here. That's provisional pole currently as he heads through 1. Next up it is GTBL's backs here from Team ATR, and interestingly, this time it's not Artical who's able to take provisional P2, but the ATR driver, and he's got a 2 tenths advantage over Kapan from GTKRS here, who's finally running his team's livery, so as he makes his way on down towards what is turn number 12, and of course these guys representatives, we're to understand it, Racing Team Astra for the purposes of the official team name, but representing GT Karas in terms of liveries they're running in this series as he makes his way on through what is turns 13 into 14. We can see here onto the brakes he goes. And right now, well, Capam, to be fair, having his strongest qualifying session of them all, but we've got all the time yet to come in on the second lap, and we stay focused on him. It's a very smooth run as he now heads up into turn 18. What will it be as we see Anzang holds on to that provisional pole with lap times coming in. Artical moves up to P3, backstage P2, Bartek up to P4. Meanwhile, Capam there, P5, he does not improve, and then we see Bax does improve. In fact, he came through just then, but not enough to dethrone Anzang. I think Anzang is going to take the pole position as Cozy Alafior there improves to a P6. That's his strongest qualifying session so far. 772's completed his session, Maverick as well, so we're only waiting on our pole sitter, and that will be Anzang here. More the question is, can he put in a potential 39 as he makes his way through the final 2 corners here? I think he'd be hard pressed, and in fact he's had a dismal lap, so I think Anzang just bringing it across the line here, not to waste any time, but he will take pole position ahead of ATR's GTPL Bax. who lines up on the front row for the first time tonight. GTB Artical being taken off that front row, will be starting in P3, being the driver to miss out by only 2 attempts, and he was only 2 thousandths faster than Bartekinen, who lines up again on the second row, and everyone of course will be looking at him with eager interest because of his launches off the line. But how close it is, there's 1.5 tenths to Capam, and it's 11 thousandths to ATR's Jose Alafior. Whatever's happened in the break between races 2 and 3, Jose Alafior has definitely reset mentally and said, right, I need to now qualify. It's not been perfect, but this has been much better from the ATR driver. It's put him up there on that third row. He's got Seb just behind him, half a tenth off P7, with Maverick there a further 2.5 tenths behind P8, and then Skuns and, well, Belgian driver just a little bit behind there as we get the qualifying times all confirmed on the right hand side of your screen. Of course, now our drivers are setting their cars up. They've got 2 minutes to do so here to make their final pit strategy preparations and final setup preparations. But Skuns there starts off row number 5 in his weakest qualifying session so far for GTKRS, with Kyo Ju in the GTV car P10, and then we have MT's Mieso last but not least P11. It's so close up and down the grid there, and you're right, Lucas, to say that. And really, there's no outliers this time. Well, Anzeng being 1.5 tenths faster almost compared to Bax. That's not really a delta. It could have gone either way given the lap times we have seen, and that is only, I think, going to set up the tempo here, and it is going to be the run to turn 1. If anybody's able to get a superb launch, they may find themselves jumping 3 or 4 places, and well, if you can imagine that Bartek's able to repeat what he did in race number 2, he could be your race leader come the exit of turn 1. As we do wait to go racing here, the countdown is set. It's time for race number 3. Transition over to the grid. All of our drivers line up once again here, and Anzeng taking that pole position as we very quickly jump off the grid here so as not to impede any of our drivers. We do look to the field here as they get ready to get underway. And it's lights out, and away we go for race number 3 here, and it looks like Anzeng getting a good start, and Bartek not able to get the start that he had in race number 2. He has launched off the line better compared to Artical, as they make their way into the braking zone here. Well, you can see Bax tucking in behind Anzeng as they make their way through. Meanwhile, Artical, all good as being behind. We've got a bit of an instant there, which was why the GTKRS machine's getting it wrong, but otherwise everybody else has made it unscathed through turns 1 and 2. And as they come into 3, it's a much calmer start to proceedings here as our drivers make their way on through the sequence of corners. But now we start to get to the nitty-gritty run at turn 6, the hairpin, and this is where we may see some drivers just start to push a little bit more to try and get those early moves done before they start to settle down into strategy rhythm. As you can see here, Kyoju acting as a little bit of a rolling runner here compared to the 3 drivers behind, as he's falling backwards off a P7 driver in front of him of what is GTB Maverick as they make their way up into turn number 11. But meanwhile, we can see here Artical trying to make the move on Bartek, and Bartek literally running the outside of their hairpin there and saying, I've got more grip than you, and as they make their way down towards turn number 13, Artical losing out at the start and definitely trying to make a return move as soon as possible. But meanwhile, looking at the front here, we've had a change of race lead. It is GTPL's Bax who has taken the lead for ATR ahead of Anzeng, and I believe that's also happened at the hairpin, at the turn 11 hairpin. So now Bax is your new race leader, and the first time we've seen a lap which is going to be led by a different driver come the timeline as they come through. But look at this, Article under huge pressure from behind in the form of Jose Alafior from ATR, and as they come through ATR right now, well, whatever they've had, whether it's been mid-race oranges or something along those lines, of course you hear the football analogy, the half-time oranges, if they've had those, well my goodness, they've been fueled up, because right now as we go on to lap number 2, ATR and HDR are on, I say HRT are both on the charge. The Polish teams in this group are really pushing on in this race. But as we bring out the race data now, you can see there ATR's Cufa in the YouTube chat saying ATR go, go, and indeed they are going some, as Jose Alafior definitely right now the driver who is shining alongside his teammate of Bax who's leading this race. But as they make the way through turns 4, 5 and into 6 once again, you can see the top 5 starting to break away from the rest of the pack here that's being led by WSR 72 for GTB in P6 as they make the way onwards towards turns 8 and 9 once again. Now, of course, when we get to lap number 4, we'll start to do the strategy check in terms of who's on what tyre compound on the fuel situation. But I think we are seeing that this latter half of the field is mostly on the hard compound, or at least we would suspect that given their pace. But also look here that Kyuju is under attack from MT's Mieso. Here's the GTV driver, defends hard into the hairpin. I think he's been given the rear gunner role in this race because you can see he's not giving it any quarter. He's making sure that the drivers behind have to fight one another and not him and his teammates up front. But as they come down through 12 and 13, Mieso loses the rear, and as he does, goes across the circuit there, and Skuns just missing being collected there by the wayward pole as they make the way on through. And the Frenchman there, I think, absolutely glad not being connected by the Polishman, as Mieso just taking a wheel onto the grass coming out of 12, and the car kicking around as he tried to get the power down. So unfortunate, but the Polishman has shown so much pace in the race over the course of today so far. But as we look from at the back of the field up towards the front of the field, you can see here that Bax is continuing to break away. But of course the question is, how much fuel saving is he doing? How much time management is he doing versus Anzeng, who's really been the king of tyre management and indeed fuel preservation over the course of the racing so far. But now we have a different conundrum for Anzen, which is he does not have the lead of this race anymore. So does he push harder, or does he stick to his guns and try and maintain the gap in the process? As Bartek, meanwhile, in P3 here, starting to fall off the top 2 very slightly, and he's got the pressure from GTV's Article here, who's trying to look for the move around the outside there into turn number 6, but to no avail. Instead trying to get Bartek to misposition himself, coming out of the hairpin in the run to turns 8 and 9, but Bartek savvy to it as they make the way through the long left-hander, and Article right now having to stay there and just focus on doing what he can as they make the way up towards turn number 11. But Cozy Lefior as well, a bit of an unknown here, just staying behind the pair in the battle for the final step of the podium as they make the way through the turn 11 hairpin. And meanwhile, Seb 72 still leading this group of cars in the run from P6 to P11. You can see it all clustered together. Well, P11's fallen off a little bit, so P6 to P10 now. But as they make the way on down towards turn number 12, Seb holding firm here as he trips his way through 12. He's got to be careful that the car almost being pulled off circuit, and Maverick sees his opportunity here. And I think Seb has said to him, look, you've got to go, I've made an error, we can't lose any time. And Seb's really struggling, the car almost snapping loose, and Seb there has to bring it to a standstill on the outside curb of 15. Now that was very close to going wrong, but in the end it's a near miss. And Seb there, well, I can tell you one thing, that car control when it went wrong was absolutely phenomenal. But for Seb 72, he's probably had the biggest near miss of the season so far as he makes his way back up to speed here, and he's only dropped to P10 and not off of the hump for P6. But as they make the way down towards turn number 1 once again here, 4 laps in, let's start to look at those strategies. Well, before we do, Capam on the inside here, Kyoju, a little bit of a tap to the rear of Capam's car by Kyoju there as they make their way through one. I think Capam trying to park it on Apex to get Kyoju not to cut back, but in return Kyoju just says, well, I've got the better run into turn number 3. I think Kyoju trying to use a bit more fuel here to really take the fight to the GT KRS driver, but they're being a bit squeezed into 4. Kyoju, they're not offering him much space, and as they make the way into 6, Capam's going to be given the opportunity to make the run around the outside here. Kyoju not forcing him too wide, just about on circuit as they make the way into turn number 8, and Capam there holding all the way around the outside to inside and gets back into P7 as they make the way through turn number 10 and up towards 11. Well, Capam definitely showing his craft of being able to go too wide for a lot of these corners here, surviving on the outside there versus Kyoju, who to be fair gave him the space and let the battle happen. But the Belgians showing respectful driving much like Capam as they make the way down towards turn number 12. But an update on the strategy then as we make our way up towards our race leader, it is as follows as we bring all the data up on screen. We can see here that ATR's GTPL Bax currently leading on fuel that's just under 50%, and the tyres are quite hard worn on those mediums, and I think he will do one more lap, but he won't go a 6th lap on them. Meanwhile, Anzeng, by comparison, been doing a bit more fuel, saving 50% fuel going into lap number 5. And more importantly for him, having approximately 5% more tyre life all round by comparison with the ATR drive. So I think Anzen's going to try and go for the jump in the pits. Will he do 5 or 6 laps on those mediums? We'll have to wait and see. Bartek in P3 there, having heavily worn the tyres down and used quite a bit more fuel, much like the ATR driver who's leading the HRT driver here, using more fuel compared to Anzeng right now. I think he's potentially at risk of falling back off of the podium step into the clutches of ATR's Cozy Lefior, who right now has been using a lot of fuel as well. In fact, the most fuel of the top 4, and those tyres are not not looking good, particularly that front left that's almost at the position of splitting open as they make their way down into turn number 6. Meanwhile, GTV's Artical, well, he's not been doing too much fuel saving either, and it's interesting to see out of this top 5, it's only Anzeng who can really afford to focus on the fuel saving, whereas everybody else is pushing a lot harder to maintain the pace. As meanwhile, GTV's Maverick 27 again on the hard compound, he's our lead hard runner, and as he makes his way through 10, he's got the pressure of Capam behind, but Maverick definitely showing the desire to want to run a different strategy compared to his peers, as Capam on the medium behind, running out of tyre life. You can see that the tyres are almost gone on the front, and right now Capam with a lot of fuel used as well, tucked in behind Maverick. Maverick here is definitely going to have the measure of Capam if he can keep this pace up, as Kyoju on the hard as well. He's used a lot of fuel, and then we do have, oh goodness me, Skuns on the medium. Those front tyres have gone, and Skuns here, this strategy is not going to work out too well. He's going to have to pit at the end of this lap, and I think he's going to really struggle on the second stint, given that most of the drivers around him, bar his teammate, will be on the medium compound. As we see here, Seb72 on the hard and fighting with the car all the way to the finish. And then we do have MT's Mieso here on the medium with a lot of damage on the car that's costing him the run through the corners. But into the pits they come, and Bax is in. And interestingly, Anzeng has also come on in. He's decided not to go the extra lap, and I think that shows you just how much pressure is on Anzeng now in terms of, as we see the fuel being put in the car here, and he does have a 5-litre advantage as a minimum, and Anzeng being released first, and he's going to come out the leader here of this group, as meanwhile Bax comes out just behind, and that goes to show you in the refuel race, will Bax using more fuel. He used 9% more fuel, did Bax, compared to Anzeng, and in the end Bax has dropped behind the Frenchman as they make their way up to speed, and this is effectively the lead of the race as we understand it being decided right now, and it's been decided in terms of the overtake, the initial overtake on strategy. Now, can Bax find a way back, given the fact they still do have, after this lap, 5 more laps to go? I think if he pushes it hard, he may be able to, but of course, have they both got enough fuel to get to the end of the race if they push hard? That will be the big question. Meanwhile, Bartek has fallen a little bit further back now, 3.5 seconds off, but comfortably ahead of Coziello Fior. And meanwhile, Artical here has come out behind Coziello Fior, so Artical losing out in the pit stops, and Capam not too far behind right now as he presses on here on an outlap with GT Karas Skuns as well. So it could be closing up a little bit. It's going to be interesting to see how the hard starters fit into this. As meanwhile, Mieso here from MT having fuel put in the car, and well, they're doing work, and I think the car is being repaired as well. They're doing the repair work to that front left side, and he'll be released shortly. But we will look to our race leader here of GTV's Maverick 27, who will lead his first lap of tonight's races at all topless, as he comes on around to complete what will be his final lap on the hard tyre before coming on in. You can see him there signaling the car on in, and as he makes his way on in, we'll see GTV's Kyoju, his teammate, coming in very shortly as well. And as they make their way into the pit lane, they're interested that Maverick's been able to save 3% more fuel as well compared to his teammates, and in fact Seb in for GTV, and it looks as though Maverick really playing the strategic stakes very well. Now where is Anzeng? Here he comes across the timeline here. He'll retake the lead of the race as we thought, and there is GTV's Bax. Bartek comes on out now in P3. Kozali Fior not too far behind, and Maverick leaving in the pit lane, and there's Maverick comes on out here. Look to Artical, there's Maverick, and Artical just gets ahead of his teammate, but keep in mind now Maverick is on the medium tyre, whereas everybody in front of him is on the hard tyre, and that means now for Maverick, presuming that Artical will let him go when Maverick gets close enough so as not to hurt Maverick's race pace and his tyre life, Maverick is only 11.3 seconds off the leader, but more critically for him, he's only 5 seconds off a potential podium, and that's what Maverick could go for here. He missed out on it in race number 2, but this race has been managed even better from Maverick, and that will give him a huge opportunity. As meanwhile, further down behind Maverick, we can see here Capam in P7 right now trying to push on to get after Maverick, but Maverick will start to break away given he's on the better compound with Capam on the hard tyre. Skuns meanwhile battling with Kyoju here, and we can see here the GTVE driver trying to find a way on through as Skuns defends, and well, he doesn't need to defend it into turn 11 this time around. As we can see there, the carbon ceramic brake discs at the front of the car starting to go a little bit red hot, and Skuns has got to be careful that, of course, braking too hard, it generates excess brake temperature, and that feeds into the tyres, and as Skuns makes his way down into turn number 12 here, really having to rattle the car hard in order to get the pace out of it as he makes his way up the hill. But I think the number 23 driver here really now up against it as they flow their way through turn 15, and you can see Ryoju here on the medium pressuring the hard runner as they come across the ridgeline through 16 into 17, and I think it's a matter of when, not if I should say, that Ryoju looks for another move as Seb22 also tries to get into this fight, and there is MT's Miezo, who is 1 minute 16 down in P11 after the incident early on in the race. But as we look up to where's Ryoju here, has he got the run in towards turn number 1 this time? I don't think so, for as they make the way towards the braking zone here, you can see the gap is quite sizable. Onto the brakes they go. And as they roll the way on in here, we do look from them all the way back up the order to Maverick, who has already found his way past Artical. The move has happened off camera, but Maverick has been released. He's been given the opportunity, but look at Capham here trying to put the pressure on Artical. Of course, these two are the Artical and Capham both on the hard tyre now, so they are racing equally, you would imagine. And for Artical, it's all about making sure Capham does not come on through, so that way GTB get the maximum possible points from this race. Meanwhile, Maverick's duty now is to close down a 4-second gap to ATR's Coziello Fior if he can, given he has got 4 laps remaining as he makes his way up towards turn number 11. But in the charge they go, and as he makes his way in towards the hairpin, you can see starting to set personal best sectors. Maverick is alive, but can he close down the gap? It's a 3.6-second gap to this man, ATR's Coziello Fior, and then it is a 1.7-second gap to Bartek from HRT, who effectively means he is 5 seconds ahead, or 5.1 seconds ahead of Maverick as they make the way on through. Meanwhile, up front, I can tell you that the battle for the lead is staying stationary for the time being. GTPL's backs representing ATR is still 1 second off of race leader, and here he is, GTB's and Zeng, as they make the way through the final corner here. 3 more laps to go for the pair as they cross the timeline, and they're both pushing as hard as possible as they come on through. But right now, Zeng under a lot of pressure because he has found his equal in this race in the form of GTPL backs, who really is trying to up the tempo. Meanwhile, Bartek falling back off the top 2 ever still and falling more towards Coziello Fior, and Maverick is pressing on. And Maverick right now setting mid-42s, which is where he wants to be, but the rate of closure is not enough right now. Based on his current rate of closure, he'll be there for the move up for P4 on the final lap, but of course those tyres will start to go as he sets a purple first sector. Maverick right now, the fastest man on circuit, there's no question about it, but can he maintain this as Artical for GTB behind him, acting as rear gunner, trying to keep GT KRS's or Racing Team Astra Skuns behind, as, oh sorry, not Skuns, I should say, Capham behind, as they make the way through turn number 6. As they roll on through the right-hand hairpin, and now into turns 8 and 9 they go. You can see Ryoju here continuing to stay a little bit further back and having to worry about Skuns, who in turn does have Seb trying to make the move. And remember that Seb is on the medium, whereas Skuns is on the hard tyre, so this should be straightforward in the grip stakes. But of course, Seb's got to make the move happen. He looks the inside here into the hairpin. He can't quite find it. Skuns going as late on the brakes as possible as Seb now looks for the return move in the run down towards 12. But as he comes on down the hill here in towards the braking zone, I do believe we have Menzies and Mieso almost a lap now down on the field as we look back to Seb here, and in the tight and technical section, running in the dirty air of Skuns. This is only going to cost him lap time, not help gain him, and he hasn't really got anywhere to make a move here as the number 11 driver, so this is going to hurt him quite considerably. But as they make the way up through the crest of 16, now the circuit will open up a little bit more, and he can start to look at trying to make that move in the run down towards 1. As they come into 18, you can see Seb's got the more tighter front end with regards to being able to turn into the corners, and that is what's aiding him. And as he comes out to the final corner, 3.5 tenths is the gap. Skuns takes a little bit to the grass there, and that's going to cost him a bit of momentum, but I don't think Seb's got enough unless he sends it onto turn number 1. Does he think about it? He's within 2 tenths. No, he waits his turn as they make the way on through. He's hoping that Skuns will make another error here as they come out, and indeed Skuns does. He takes a little bit wide, and as they make the way through to it, Seb on the inside here in the battle for P9. It's GTB versus Racing Team Astra GT8 KRS, and as they make the way in towards turn number 3, Seb gets the inside line and he gets it done. Now, can he seal the deal into the turn 6 hairpin? If he does, from that point onwards, I think he will start to pull away. Well, he looks like he's got it parked nicely on apex there, and I think Skuns now is going to try and find the run up towards turn at number 11. But speaking of finding the run, we do look from them. what is GTV's Maverick here with 2 laps to go, 1.5 laps we should really say, and well, he has been one of the fastest drivers on the circuit. In fact, he did set the fastest lap provisionally, and then MT's Mieso set an even faster one there. But as Maverick makes his way in the pursuit of Cozy Fior, the ATR driver, now only 1.1 seconds clear of Bartek in front of him and trying to bring it on down, but in return only 8 tenths clear of Maverick behind, and Maverick is the bigger issue here, as right now the ATR driver running on the hard compound is running out of time to hold on, but Maverick of course is running out of grip available to him. Has he got enough to make the move count on the final lap? Our race leaders meanwhile still separated by a second. It's still Anzeng from GTV ahead of ATR's GTPL backs, and as they make the way through turn 18, you can see there, well, Maverick giving Cozy Fior a little tap on the rear end to say, can you get a move on please, because that shows you how much grip Maverick's got. And as they make the way down towards 1, Cozy Fior covers off the inside. He's going to make Maverick go all the way round. No way through at the moment, but as they go onto the brakes, Cozy Fior covers it off, and as they make the way through the right hand, he's going to open his elbows out here, make sure that Maverick can't get the run out of 1. All fair to be fair, he hasn't pushed him off circuit, he's just pushed him to the point where he's only got literally the minimum amount of track allowed, or needing to be allowed to him, we should say. And Maverick right now is going to have to be a bit more creative, as Cozy Fior seems to have his number in the run to turn number 1. But as they come in towards turn number 6 here, right now Maverick's parked in behind, and he'll be looking for the run out of 8, 9 up towards 11. That's his next opportunity to potentially make the move as they come in towards the double left-hander. As they come on down, you can see now that Maverick going a little bit deep there. I think that might have been the sign that his tyres are now starting to fall off the cliff as he comes on through turn number 10. He's been 3 attempts here. Does he go all into the turn 11 hairpin? No, he waits once again here, still trying to find his way on past the ATR driver. But as they come on down the hill, you can see Cozy Fior not feeling intimidated right now, feeling comfortable as they head down to the braking zone and roll the way into the right-hander as he goes a little bit deep, in fact, and has to reset the car in terms of lift off a little bit and not carry too much speed. But be fair, now it's 1 wide country. He doesn't have to worry about having Maverick go up his inside for as they make the way through 14 and 15. He's still holding on. Meanwhile, speaking of holding on here, well, after a difficult race number 2, which was prevented from being a double win due to an off track of his own mistake, and then returns to top form for GTV as he crosses the line. Your winner in race number 3 ahead of ATR's GTPL backs, and it will be Bartek from HRT who completes the podium ahead of ATR's Cozy Fior, who holds off Maverick from GTV to the line. It will then be GTV's Artical P6 ahead of teammate Ryoju at P7, and it will be Capan P8 for GTKRS ahead of GTV's Seb72, and it will be GTKRS's Skuns in P10. And then last but not least, making his way around right now, it will be MT's Mieso here, P11 last but not least, after a race that started in the way he didn't want it to go. But as we do look from what is Mieso to our race winner here, well, I think Anzeng will be absolutely pleased that he's back on form after what was a difficult race number 2, where it was his own error that cost him the win and dropped into P7, and in a subsequent error stroke, a bit of contact, which cost him the run in the top 10, dropped him all the way to the back of the field. But no doubt there, he'll know that that was just a blip and not a run of form. And well, for Bax, he will be gutted not to have taken the win in race number 3, being jumped in the pit through strategy, with Anzeng saving a lot more fuel, saving almost 10% more fuel over the course of the race. And for the ATR driver, he'll be knowing that he can make the run in qualifying, but he's got to find a way to upset the strategy of Anzeng when they go into the race, because to be fair, that P2, an absolutely brilliant P2, but as a driver you always want to be P1. And meanwhile, HRT's Bartek there, a deserved podium from him. 2 podiums out of 2 now in races 2 and 3, and well, can the Polishman go one step further and make it a P2 rather than a P3 ahead of the GTV pack? And in particular, you'd have to imagine that Maverick will feel very down about not being able to make any further places in this race. But here comes MT's Mieso to the line as he makes his way across there, and well, I think a bit of frustration after what was a difficult race number 3, but still 1 more race to go. But as we see our drivers just gradually making their way round on their cool down laps now. Skuns not quite there in this race, much like his teammate from GTKRS of Capam, just not quite able to make qualifying work nor the start of the race work, and they need, I think, to just reset going into race number 4 and see if they can get themselves further up the order, because at the start we saw them contesting rows 2 and 3, but qualifying did not go their way whatsoever, and it cost them dearly, and that was clearly seen when they tried to invoke the strategy of the medium start, because they just got held up behind hard runners, and when you get caught up behind a hard runner, that completely destroys the strategy of running on the optimum tyre early on, or the faster tyre we should really say, but it was suboptimal for the circumstances. But as we look here to Kyoju and also Artical, 2 teammates working together and really running the rear gun effort for Maverick, but Maverick, as we said earlier, just not able to find a way in versus ATR's Cozy Fior, their P4. He'll be looking for a podium in the final race, just not quite able to hold off Bartek in the run towards turn number 1, and then after it's settled down, I think settling with the strategy. But congratulations to all of our drivers, but a special congratulations to our race winner, GTfusiOn. But with race number 3 complete, ladies and gentlemen, we now do get ready to go racing one more time in race number 4. It's coming up very shortly. We will very shortly close this lobby, and in fact, let's make sure we save the replay here just in case it is required. But the big talking points of this race, we seem to have seen that with regards to the drivers who start towards the back of the field on the medium, that medium compound, it may be faster versus the hards, but when you've got drivers in front who are just able to defend so comfortably here at all top of the list, it's worth just starting the hard from the outset. And also we got to see that Bax taking a brilliant start in the race and getting into the lead, but Ansing being able to usurp him on strategy, and that's what the difference was. And now, can we see Bax potentially find a way to jump ahead of Ansing, not just in terms of the launch on lap number 1, but also in strategy in the final race? We'll have to wait and see as our drivers get set and ready to go racing one last time. And it will be another 11-lap race. It will be another 5-minute qualifying session before it. It's all to play for one last time today, and we will be back very shortly, ladies and gentlemen, for race number 4. Give us approximately 5 to 10 minutes. The lobby will be back, and with it, we'll be back to cover it one last time. And we go racing for one last time this year for the GTfusiOn 2022 Team World Championship, as brought to you on Gran Turismo 7. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back then for the build-up to the final race of this evening. Indeed, Group B's final race of the season. It is race number 4, preceded, of course, by qualifying for another 4-minute qualifying session. Sorry, 5-minute qualifying session, I should say. Trying to put all 4s in there where there is a 5, and then an 11-lap race to decide it all. And, well, all of our drivers right now, right at the end of their championship crusades, and who will be able to bring home the last win of tonight. Of course, the runner form would indicate there'd be GTB's and Zeng, presuming that they're able to put together the qualifying lap they so desire, but with the pace being shown by GTB's Artical, also the pace being shown by the likes of what is their GTPL's backs represented ATR and also HRT's Bartek. Anything can happen in the final race of the season, indeed of the day, and it's been fantastic racing from start to finish. We've seen overtakes being made at places you don't normally overtake at all topless. We've seen moves down the outside, moves up the inside, launches off the line, which are absolutely golden with the reaction times of Valtteri Bottas, of course, and that was none other than the Polish winner of Bartek for HRT with those reaction times in race number 2. We've seen it all, and we go into qualify now one more time. So as qualifying gets underway, ladies and gents, with all the drivers having 5 minutes, we jump out of the car and to the spectators' room here as we wait for our drivers to make their way on out. Indeed, all of our drivers being given the green light, and as they head on out of the pit lane here, we'll very shortly be able to give you the cameras on the exteriors of our cars as we do in fact, and we can see GTKRS here making their way on out. Indeed, many a driver as we are in fact missing GTV's and Zane there, so qualifying has started without them. I believe this may lead to a restart of qualifying. I'm not sure what's going to happen there, but that's a little bit of a surprise with regards to An Zheng not being in the room before qualifying got underway. You can see that, I think there's a bit of confusion. We're just waiting what's exactly going to happen here, but there may be a restart of qualifying, ladies and gentlemen, depending on what's going to happen here. But as we see Kappa making their way through, in fact, there is the mention there will be a restart by the looks of things, as all of our drivers are called to the pits, and well, that will be the qualifying session over very quickly indeed, as we just try to jump on out, and I don't think we can here, so we'll have to wait and see. In fact, we can jump on out, and we are going to be getting a restart. Now, in terms of how this works in practice, we're not sure. This is the first time we've seen the need to do a qualifying restart, so we will get confirmation for our organisers very shortly. I think they're a little bit over eagerness on the behalf of our lobby host to get racing, and in fact, the lobby has been closed down, so we'll be right back once again, ladies and gents. Give us 2 to 3 minutes there. Little team in troubles, just a bit of enthusiasm, but to be fair, don't fault the enthusiasm. We'll be going racing again very shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we return then to the reformed Race 4 lobby, and I think everybody is now ready to go. Unfortunately, we're not going to be seeing the return of MT's Mika at this point, so it will be just what is 11 drivers taken to the tarmac for the final time. But as we get ready to go into qualifying again, 5 minutes of qualifying, but we do have all 11 drivers who are available, ready to go racing here, including Anzeng, of course, our GTV driver, and the fastest man in the field, it could be argued, albeit at least in the first half of tonight's racing. But as we get ready to go here, you can see their article, I think, politely saying nobody's missing, just a double, triple check, and we've been given the thumbs up here to say qualifying is a go. So we get ready for the transition once again. It'll be 5 minutes of qualifying, 11 laps of racing, and that will be when we do bring the curtain on down in this final race of the season. But the clock ticks down. It's time for qualifying. And as qualifying gets underway, we of course jump out of qualifying and go to the spectators booth here. And as we see our drivers gradually making their way out of the pit lane, the pressure will be on now to deliver that one lap that could be all the difference between picking up the perfect result in the final race of the season and ending on a high or ending on a disappointing day of racing or somewhere in between. But we can see that GTV's Artical, the first driver to make their way out of the pit lane here, flying on out with Kyoju not too far behind. As they roll their way on through turn number 3 right now, we can see also Skuns hugging their rear end for the simple reason they're trying to get around as soon as possible to then go on to their flying lap to give themselves 2 laps worth of qualifying time. But we've seen the tradition so far with lots of our drivers really trying to race round, but there'll be no tyre wear fuel depletion. Our drivers do not have to worry about tyre preservation or making sure they've got enough fuel to put their qualifying laps in. Alternatively, taking the fuel out of the car to lighten the car to have some slightly faster laps. And as we do see here, 772 making their way through turn number 9 and up towards 10, close behind Capam, and what is a little bit further up the road, I believe GTVL Backs. With that Backs a little bit further back, you can see right now everybody close together, but they will gradually start to separate out once we do get to the final couple of corners. We need our drivers just settling down into the rhythm here. Not long to go as we do look to what is our driver who's up towards the front of the field at the moment, Artical, who will be the driver we ride on board with for the purposes of our final flying lap of this qualifying season in terms of our drivers putting in laps in qualifying sessions. And as he goes through the final corners, that's right, boys, it goes very deep. As to set up his line, we bring you all the telemetry data and we ride on board the hood as he makes his way down towards turn number 1. So in top gear here in the long charge, making his way up towards the braking zone and looking over to his left-hand side for his brake marker. It'll be just after 100 metres. We'll break about 90 metres there and coming down to second gear. So not confident with the third gear apex at turn 1. Wants the power out in second gear, powers through turns 2 and up towards 3 goes. Flat out here, of course, into the braking zone, braking at about 85 metres from corner apex into 3, down to 4th gear, and then rolling into turns 4 and 5. And you can see that the hesitation of the car to roll out to the right to get into left-hander 4-5, but no hesitation into 6 as he gradually brings it onto the apex, goes and rolls off there at turn 6. Now through 7, flat out through here, and now up to 4th gear before lifting off as he goes to meet the apex of 8, down to 3rd, and as he gets back on the power, short shifts up to 4th here to give himself the rotation as he comes through turn 10, and now up towards 11 he goes. Now looking over to his right for his brake mark here, looking at the marshal's post, that's the brake mark there, approximately 80 metres from the hairpin apex. Given the fact that it's slightly uphill, you can brake a little bit later than you normally would as he comes out of 11 now down towards 12, looks over to the left-hand side here, looks to brake as late as possible, lifts off the foot on brakes at about 60 metres, in 4th gear through 12, 4th gear into 13, turns in nice and early, car understeers a little bit there as he now makes his way into 14, balances the throttle flat out, but then brings it into 15, goes nice and deep through the first part of 15 to straighten up the run out of 15 into 16, 3rd gear up the hill, now into 4th gear, into 17 he goes through the left hander, and now up towards 18. It's been a very smooth lap from Artical so far, and as he makes his way down to 3rd gear into the apex of turn 18, then powers out it flat out now all the way to the line. And what's it going to be for the GTB drivers? He crosses the line. It's a 41.349, but immediately there a faster lap from Kyoju, what is a 140.072. Skuns, meanwhile, can't achieve more than 41.696 currently, and we've got drivers filtering themselves in between, as it is Kyoju who's gone the fastest so far, but more laps to come on in, and we can see here as those lap times come on down, we've got Bax crossing the line. He goes P4 there at the 41.143. What about our faster drivers, as we're expecting that we can see there? GTB Maverick going at what is provisional pole of 40.849. What about Anzeng here? He crosses the line. It's P2 there. It's not provisional pole the first time around. And I think the only other driver who we've yet to see a lap from is ATR's Cozy Fior, who crosses the line there, and it's P11. A dismal lap from a 45. That's well off the pace, 45.4. You can see the shake in the car side to side. He is not happy at all, and this may be perhaps the qualifying session that just does not work out, and he goes back to that run of qualifying form that we saw in races 1 and 2. But meanwhile, it is a GTB lockout in the front row so far. In fact, they'll take the top 3 positions should things finish as they are, with Maverick being the fastest out on a 40.849 and Anzeng not too far behind. Now, we do have a little bit of a wind direction change. We've now got a wind that's almost blowing northerly. It's what is a northwesterly wind, and as the drivers come on through, that will change the dynamic of some of the corners. Particularly, they will feel in the uphill run out of 13 up towards 15. The car will carry a lot more speed behind it as they head up the hill, because it will blow forward with the wind direction. But as the Anzeng heading on down towards what is turn number 13. More lap times coming on in right now, including Kyoju here comes to the line. Artikal goes up to P3. Kyoju does not improve. What about Bartek here as he comes to the line? Muskuns improves to P8 there, but not by too much. Bartek does not improve. In fact, he stays P5 there, does Bartek, as he crosses the line. And, well, we see Seb72 improves to 41.497. That's not too much improvement. And meanwhile, we do have MT's Miezo improving to a P9. Bax improves to 40.932. That puts him P3. What about Anzeng? And meanwhile, he comes to the line here, and, well, will he be able to take pole position, or will he miss out? He doesn't do it. It's GTB's Maverick who seems to take pole so far. We're still waiting on Cozy Fior for ATR as he comes to the line. And he improves for 41.845, but it does not move up from the bottom step of the grid. So in an interesting twist, it is GTB's Maverick 27, the Canadian driver, who finally, at the 4th time of trying, nails pole position for the final race of the series as he gets ready to go. A brilliant lap for him. Anzeng joins him on that front row. He'll then be GTB's Bax for ATR, who is joined on the 2nd row by GTB Artikal. Watch out for the pair of them. Kyoju starts P5, his best qualifying position of the night, with Bartek alongside for HRT, and it'll be the GT KRS pair of Kapam and Skuns, and then we'll have row 5 MT's Mieso and Seb72 from GTBE, and then on the final row, on his lonesome, will be ATR's Cozy Fior. They're just not able to put the qualifying time in that we saw in race number 3's qualifying session. But what a session it has been for our drivers. And Maverick, you would imagine right now, if he starts this race on the hard, he could really throw a curveball into everybody's races. Now, will Maverick commit to what he's done for the last 2 races, which is start on the suboptimal compound to begin with in terms of lap time, run it long, and then use the medium at the end to make up the delta? Of course, what he needs is the launch off the line into 1, and he can't afford to lose any more places if he wants to win. He will want to try and hold that lead into turn 1. If he can do it off the line, then Anzeng Bax are going to find it very difficult to find the way in front. If Maverick can hold them, even if it is just for 1 or 2 laps, it could be all the difference. But what a qualifying session, and there are the times, and pole position in the end being decided by 15 thousandths of a second, and GTBL's Bax only a further, what was 8 hundredths off. That's how close it was. And now the question will be, who will be your winner in race number 4? And I'm not going to put my money on anyone being the potential winner here. It's all going to come down to how they nail it at the start and who runs what strategy, because we have seen strategy has been so important. As now everyone's readied up, it's time for us to go racing for the final time for Group B this season, and in round number 6, it's race number 4. As we look down to the grid here, and it's a GTV lockout on the front row. We've said that a number of times, but will it be that way come the finish line? We quickly get off of the grid, of course, and jump into the spectator booth. And it's lights out and away we go for the final race of the season as we try to get the run down towards turn number 1. And Maverick here with a good start. He's had the launch he needs. Now as they head down towards turn number 1, can he hold Anzeng on the outside here? Anzeng's going to try and force the issue round. He does. So Maverick will lose one place, but that's not the place he'll be worried about too much because his teammate, it's Bax behind, who knows he's got to get through into turn 3. If he doesn't, and he doesn't find it, this could be decided for Bax right now. This is really not the place he needs to be in because he needs to clear Maverick straight away. I think Maverick started on the hard. We'll find out about that shortly enough. But right now, Bax not getting the move. Meanwhile, Anzeng being given the opportunity to come through further back. Meanwhile, we can see that Bartek battling with Skun straight away. Skun's having a great start, to be fair, as they make the way through turns 8 and 9 and trying to battle hard against Bartek for P6. And as they make the way through turn number 10, parking up behind right now, not able to find the move, and therefore having to wait. Meanwhile, we see Kozeli Fior here, now breaking himself into turn number 11 and losing the place to Capam, and Capam gaining some ground there. As meanwhile, we look a bit further up, and Bartek here, Artical and Skuns in a 3 wide, and Skuns there backing off with a little bit of grass taken with him, and Bartek, well, I think there was it kicked off at the exit, the turn at 11 hairpin, and then with Artical getting a poor run, Bartek going a little bit deep, and Skuns getting a really good run. They made it 3 wide, but they somehow managed to survive a 3 wide run, and you never see 3 wide at all top lists unless it's on the start finish straight normally, but they found a way to go 3 wide in the run to 12, and they all navigated it safely as they come to the end of lap number 1, and we bring our race data up on screen for you. But as they make the way on around at the moment, we can see here Bartek now finding himself in a very uncomfortable position. He's got to push hard versus the Belgian in front, but the Frenchman behind also keeping the pressure on. So after 1 lap, it is Anzeng who leads by 1.7 seconds and is pulling away at a rapid rate of knots versus GTV's Maverick in P2. Then we have ATR's GTPL Bax in P3, followed by Kyoju P4, Skuns P5. He's found his way ahead as Capam there out of position. I'm wondering if there's been some contact. Well, we have lost a driver. In fact, it's Kozeli Fior going round the outside here of where's Capam. If he can get it done into turn number 3, Kozeli Fior holds the inside now into turns 4 and 5. He's going to get it set, done, and as he makes his way up in towards turn number 6 right now, the ATR driver there making a critical pass, as meanwhile Capam stays behind. MT's Mieso moves up to P8, having started a bit further down, and well, it's Kozeli Fior who's gained all the way from P11 to P6. He's the biggest gainer of the field, as meanwhile P9 we have WSRs at 772, then GTV at Artical in P10. He's had a difficult moment, as has Bartek. I wonder if the two of them came together into turn number 1, and that's what led to them both falling down the order. Well, we can only theorise because we haven't seen what's happened, but we can also theorise here is I think Bartek's looking for the move as soon as possible. Can't quite find it into turn at number 11. But meanwhile, as we look back to our leaders here, Anzeng continuing to pull away, and Maverick right now, well, he has got Bax right behind him as we ride on board here with the ATR driver, and I think Maverick is definitely on the hards because he is struggling for pace right now compared to Bax. You can imagine in Bax's mind, he will be absolutely frustrated here. He could not get the move done into turn 3 on lap number 1. He needed that move because Anzeng right now is literally being bought all the time in the world he needs, and given we have seen that Zen is so strong on fuel saving compared to the majority of the field, now Bax has got to use extra fuel to make this move count if he can make it happen. As they make the way into turn 1 once again, he lifts off there, he lifts and coasts into the braking zone, and I think he's trying to get the run into 3, but Maverick plants the throttle there and nails it, and you can see this differential where Maverick right now will be using extra fuel, but I think he'll feel as though given the amount of time he's going to be making up on the medium compound in the second half of this race, he can afford to use a little bit extra fuel and spend that time in the pits. He does not need to worry too much because he'll have the better compound come the end, and as they come through turn number 6, Bax still parks behind. As they make the way out of turn 6 and 7 and up towards 8 and 9, we look to Kyoju in P4 right now, who has Skuns right behind him. Skuns staying with him all the way in the long run through. But then Kozeli Fior under pressure from MT's and Mieso as they come out of turn number 9 up towards 10, and as they roll the way up to the braking zone, you can see Mieso taking a little bit of a think and a peek into turn at number 11, but not close enough to do it there. I think that was more to intimidate and distract rather than do anything with regards to a physical move. And as they make the way down the hill here, here. Now we can see Capam staying close and trying to help out in the situation here. Of course, with Skuns being a little bit further up the road, he'll want to try and get closer to his teammate as much as possible and get ahead of Mieso and Jose Lefior. But Capam definitely not having the start that his teammate had, as meanwhile Seb72 stays close behind, and Artcal and Bartek a little bit further back in P10, P11, still tooth and nail making their way on through and up the hill through turns 15 and 16. As they make their way over the ridge here, we do look back to our race lead, and Anzeng's made a mistake somewhere, because that advantage, in fact that last lap, a 43.6, meanwhile Maverick a 43.0, Bax a 43.0 as well. Anzeng's made a mistake, so the pressure is getting to Anzeng, it would seem, in this last race here. We saw the pressure got to him in race number 2, we heard it got to him, we didn't see it on camera, we saw the aftermath, which was in the end dropping to P7 and then subsequently dropping all the way down. But here comes Bax looking for the move around the outside, and Maverick into 3. Maverick's going to make sure to defend as hard as he can, but in the end Bax gets it done as they go on to this full flat. Now Maverick looks the inside into turn 6, he can't quite find it, but this gives us an opportunity now to take a look at the strategies in terms of the data and what tyres. And you can see here Anzeng on the medium tyre right now, trying to nurse that medium tyre and manage the fuel, whereas behind Bax has used at least, I think that's over 15% more fuel to try and make the move, and you can understand why. And the tyres as well, Bax has literally stripped the life out of these tyres, and he's only on lap 4. Meanwhile, will Maverick decide to start on the medium? So we've been corrected there. I thought Maverick had started on the hard, but he's had a bit of contact to the rear of the car, and that's caused some aerodynamic damage. But Maverick on the medium here, so he's opted not to gamble, and therefore that move was effectively for track and strategic position, not just for track position. Well be, and Maverick right now, although he's got quite a bit to do, and he's been saving a lot of fuel compared to Bax, and Bax is on the back foot, it would seem, with regards to the fuel situation at the moment as they make their way up towards turn number 18. Meanwhile, P4, we have Skuns here, who on a set of mediums that have seen much better days, and he'll get onto lap number 5, but I think those tyres are going to fall off by the time they get to turn number 11, we should say, as meanwhile Kyoju on the hard tyre here has had an absolutely brilliant start. He's used a lot of fuel, however, but Kyoju right now, our lead hard runner in P5, and this is working out wonders for him, as he's quite close to the back of Skuns, as meanwhile Jose Lefior here on the hard as well, ahead of the medium runner of MT's Mieso here, who has used quite a bit of fuel, much like the drivers ahead of him. And then we have Capam on the medium, and look at those front tyres of the GT KRS driver. There's just nothing left of them. He's flying, to be fair, but he's pushing them very hard, and that means they're going to be gone by the end of this 5th lap, as we see WSR 772 for GTVE on the hard tyre, Articat on the medium, but with some damage on the front of the car, and then Bartek there running last but not least on the medium tyre, having used the most fuel of everybody so far. And well, the HRT driver definitely right now, I think, clutching at straws in this race and trying to find a way back on in. But as we look to our race leader and clear all the telemetry data off screen for you, can see Anzeng right now just managing this race. And for GTVL's Bax representing ATR, he's got to push it because he's got no ground to gain anymore. Surely he will have guessed that he will have less fuel in the car and therefore have to spend longer in the pits compared to Maverick and Anzeng. So he's got to give it everything. He has got to push it to the maximum and find some way of undermining the strategic advantage that GTV have brought to the table here today with regards to their lead drivers in these races. But as the top 3 make the way up the hill and underneath the bridge there, we do look from what is our P3 driver back to P4, and Skuns right now struggling on the medium tyres that are practically at their end if they haven't already gone off the cliff. And as they make their way through turn number 5, well, Kyoju right now so close to the back of the medium runner. Of course, Kyoju on the hard tyre. Anzeng goes the 6th lap on the medium. He's going all in on the strategy. But here we see the split where we've got our medium runners mostly coming in on the Anzeng. And meanwhile, we do see Artical and company. Well, in fact, he's in as well. So many drivers on in, but we do see the likes of Seb, Jose Lefior, and also Kyoju on the hard, all staying out for 1 extra lap here to take the hard 6 laps, and then the medium will be 5 laps at the finish. But this is where now it gets into interesting territory for these drivers, because they have to now this final lap on the hard tyre. They can't afford to make any mistakes, as otherwise they will lose out dearly. Speaking of losing out dearly, well, here is GTVL's Bax, but Maverick there we had damage on the rear of the car and they've repaired it, and it's cost him 3 seconds in the pits. Otherwise, he would have jumped ahead of Bax. But now Maverick finds himself actually closer to Skuns and MT Mieso rather than being able to hunt down Bax in. Could we see this cost Maverick even more time when given Kyoji has been running such a strong strategy on that hard compound? Well, we'll have to wait and find out. And we haven't got long to wait, given the fact that our hard runners and indeed our race leader on the medium will all be coming in at the end of the current lap on lap number 6. But as they make the way around, have we seen any switches of position? Well, the only one we have seen is that Bartek has jumped ahead of GTV's Artikal, and well, Bartek did not have damage on the car, Artikal did, and he's had to repair that damage in the pit lane, and so that's how the place swap has occurred. As we look to our leader here, who's now on his 6th lap on those medium tyres, of course doing absolutely brilliant work in tyre preservation, there's no doubt about it. But going deep, then you can see the tyres have fallen off of the car, just not able to carry any speed on through, and then comes into the pit lane. And well, here comes Kyoji in P2 with our race leader 8.7 seconds up the road, and he'll feel as though he's just going to re-inherit the lead given the advantage he's pulled on the field. And our hard runners now make the way in. Oh goodness me, Kyoji hitting the wall. Was it damage though? That's the question we try to see. And well, it was not damage, it was a near miss for Kyoji. That could have gone so horribly wrong as we clear the telemetry data. But the hard runners are in, and Zeng's already out the pit lane onto the hards now. And here is back, and you can see the gap between the two of them there. The gap when they get down to turn number 1 is going to be 3 seconds. Meanwhile, Maverick comes on through, and you can see Kyoji coming out of the pit lane on the medium. Skuns comes on through in P4, MT Mioso there in P5, and then Kyoji now on. Oh goodness me, there's contact there between Kozel Fior and Kapam, and I think that's where Kapam was expecting Kozel Fior not to unghost there, but he unghosted right into the path of the GT KRS driver. And Kapam right now, I would not be surprised if he has some damage on the front end. Well, no, he does not have damage, neither does Kozel Fior. So in fact, I don't think there was contact between the two of them. It looked like it from the camera angle. I think there had to be just a little bit of quick evasive manoeuvres from Kapam, as now they make the way back up to racing speed. But as they do, we can see that Kapam just ahead of Seb 72 from GTBE. So the biggest strategic change right now is that Kyoji has got the medium tyres. He's got 5 laps to go, including this lap. Can he hunt down a potential podium? Because that podium spot is well within his grasp. It's only within 5 seconds. And can he do what Maverick was unable to do in race number 3? Was he comes on down the hill right now. Of course, the hard runners in front will know that he's coming. Are they ready for him? That's the question. As Kyoji comes roaring on through turn number 13 here, MT's Mieso continues to push on as they make the way up the hill for 14 and 15. Now what's very interesting here, of course, is the way in which these hard runners are all together. Previously we've seen them being quite separated out, but given the fact they're all within about 1.5 seconds of one another, they're likely all feeling a little bit of the dirty air or the toe of the car in front. And as they make the way on around right now, the thing for Mieso here is, of course, he can't afford really to make any errors, given that Kyoji is 7 attempts off him. But Kyoji not interested in catching as much as we thought he would at this point as they make the way on down. And Mieso, in fact, I think finding some pace in that hard tyre. He is gradually being caught, but not at the rate and not to what perhaps expect. And Kyoji here, perhaps he's trying to protect the tyre a little bit to give him the run towards the end of the race, where previously we have seen that medium tyre on the offset strategy collapse under the tyre well on the final 2 laps. But as he comes on through turns 1, 2 and up towards 3, setting a purple first sector by 1.5 attempts versus the previous best lap set by GTVO's back to ATR. Kyoji now close enough to start considering a move versus MT Mieso, but as they make the way out to turn number 6, you can see here Kyoji having to really balance the car as we've got Kozel Fior closing up behind here, and the ATR driver looking at this and thinking that he can get into the fight as well to be inside the top 5. But of course, all the time these guys battle, it's costing them time in the run after that P3 position on the podium as they make the way into the braking zone. And Kozel Fior, of course, as well on the medium compound at this point, 3 attempts up on the previous best lap of the race, and flying right now is the ATR driver. And I think Kyoji here could be very vulnerable to a move by another medium runner, and well, the ATR driver here definitely trying to set himself up for success as he comes through 12 and 13 and up the hill he goes. but as they make their way in towards 14 and 15 in quick succession here, you can see how Miyozo really now struggling with the grip afforded to him by the hard time. Kyoju can't make the move, although I think Miyozo goes a bit deep. There's contact between the two of them, and Kyoju is sent to the wall there as he's underneath our camera perspective, and that is a disaster for Kyoju, who is sent to the wall. And now Miyozo has got Cozy Alafior behind, and I think for Cozy Alafior, he's going to look at this and think, right, I need to get this move done before we get into the latter half of the lap. They went too wide up into turn 16. It's not a place you go too wide, and that's why, because in the end somebody's going to go off, be elbowed out, and well, it was the GTE driver who lost out in the end. Now Cozy Alafior knows he's got to get this move done as soon as possible. Gets a good run out to 1. And Miyozo here covering off the inside as they come through 2. He's going to keep defending the inside down towards 3. Cozy Alafior's going to be made to go around the outside. He's got the grip, he's got the space, and he does it as he goes into 4 and 5. Miyozo will try and come back into 6, but I don't think he's going to be able to do it unless he goes very late on the brakes, but not to be, as Cozy Alafior then moves up into P5. It's now 3 seconds to GT Karis' Skuns up in P4 here, who right now is running 1.4 seconds off of GTV's Maverick 27, and Maverick 27 right now matching the lap times of Skuns. They're not moving up closer together or apart, they're staying about the same. Meanwhile, in the battle for the win here, Will Anzen currently 2.6 seconds ahead of what is the ATR driver of Bax, as the GTB driver here holds a firm advantage. He just does not need to make any errors from now to the end of the race. We saw the errors come in race number 2. He won't want to repeat to that. He had a little bit of a scary moment early on in this race where he had an advantage, he lost it. He won't want to lose it one last time, Hicks. He'll want to make it 3 wins out of 4, and as he makes his way through what is turn number 17, it'll be 4 out of 4 for GTB in this lobby, of course, given the fact it was Articow who picked up the win in race number 2. But Anzen right now knowing that it's very precious to Deer bringing home 1 more win with 2 laps to go here, as we're gradually seeing the sun set on the top of this circuit in the Ito Prefecture of Japan. As he comes down towards turn number 1 once again, it's 2 laps between himself and Destiny as he makes his way down towards the braking zone for 1. But as he gets ready to go onto the brakes here, Bax follows him hard, and Maverick there is gradually creeping away from Skuns, gaining 3 tenths on that lap. Skuns is starting to struggle a little bit here, and Cozy Alafior is bringing that gap down. He's brought it down by a whole second since we last checked. He runs a little bit wide there, but Cozy Alafior right now will be battling against the tyre life. Meanwhile, MT Miyozo here, I think, feeling safe from step 72. As they make the way into turn number 3 for the penultimate time of our skid. Step 72, however, under pressure and Capam as the GT KRS driver tries to find a way past the GTB driver as they make the way through 5 into 6. Onto the brakes they go through the right-hand hairpin. No change at the moment as the Pro driver tries to hold on there. And as they make the way out of 7 into 8, 9, you see Capam definitely trying to put that pressure on in spades as they make the way through turn number 9 up towards 11. They charge, and he's well within the slipstream zone now. He's going to be feeling quite the buffet coming through the corners, but in return, of course, the change will be now he's heading into the most technical section. This is where the front end of the car will not want to rotate as much anymore, given the fact he's going to have to battle against the elements of understeer. But as they come down through turn number 12 up towards 13 they go. Captain goes a little bit deep, and there you can see the first signs of that understeer creeping on in. Meanwhile, we look up to Cozy Alafior. He's now well within a second. He's within 6 tenths of Skuns as they make the way through 15 and 16. He's caught up very rapidly. Has he got enough tyre life, however, left to be able to go for the move versus Skuns at the start of this lap and then potentially close Maverick down right at the end? Well, I think he can definitely get P4, but whether he can get P3 or not, I think that is going to be a mammoth task. But say it's not so, and never say never, as they say, as he makes his way across the line and onto the final lap here as they make the way down towards turn number 1. Skuns defending inside. Cozy Alafior on the outside. The ATR driver's going to have to go all the way round. He's later on the brakes. Skuns make sure to stay on the inside there, but there's contact between the two of them, but it's nothing drastic. And as they make the way in the drag race through 2 here, Cozy Alafior gets ahead. Skuns tucks in. He looks to move into 3. He's going to go for it. There's no doubt about it. He goes all in on the brakes. Cozy Alafior there has to give him the space, but he defends it into 4. And Cozy Alafior moves up into P4 right at the death of this race, albeit Maverick 27 now, 2.8 seconds clear. I don't don't think he has to worry. I think he will be safe to be on the podium. But what about our race leaders? Well, here is ATR's GTBL Bax, who is currently 3.5 seconds off the Anzeng. And the GTB driver here, as the headlights come on, is more safe than sorry as he comes down for 11 here. He's not got long to go, and it's all in his control to make it 3 wins out of 4 for himself and 4 out of 4 for GTB in Group B. But meanwhile, we look to the back of the field, and here is Bartek battling with GTB Artical here as they make the way up into turn 11. And right now, Bartek has fallen back behind Artical after he came out ahead in the pits. So these two have been battling for P10 for some time. But Artical has come out ahead in that battle. And right now, things are settled as Capham's tyres are falling off in the run through 12. He can't stay close to Ryoju anymore. Step 72, meanwhile, still pursuing Miezo all the way to the end. But as they come on through the corners, here goes Fior pushing on. But there can only be one winner. And it will be GTB's Anzeng, who crosses the line to make it 3 wins out of 4 by winning race number 4 here in Group B, ahead of GTB's Bax representing ATR. It'll then be GTB Maverick P3 completing the podium, ahead of ATR's Coziella Fior, GT Karis' Skuns P5, MT's Miezo P6, and then it'll be the GTB pair of Seb 72 and Ryoju in P7, P8, ahead of Cap and P9 for GT Karis, GT Artical P10, and then last but not least, to bring down the curtain and the final checkered flag, it is Bartek F99 from HRT who completes our finishing order for race number 4. Well, what a brilliant race in the end. It had it all. Drama at the start, strategy in the middle, and overtakes at the end. But what a fantastic set of drives from Anzeng. And I think he'll be kicking himself knowing it could have been 4 wins out of 4. A clean sweep if it were not for one mistake in race number 2. But that goes to show you how high the stakes are for Anzeng, to be fair. Through him and also the effort of GTB Artical, making it 4 wins out of 4 for GTB in Group B's lobby. And the team will be absolutely proud of that. That will give them a huge haul of points going into the final standings. For ATR as well, it didn't start off strong for the combination of ATRs at Coziella Fior and GTBL Bax, but they found their pace in race 2, and particularly Coziella Fior found his qualifying pace in the end for race number 3, but he didn't in race number 4. He made the strategy work, however, took a little bit of inspiration from Maverick 27, I suspect, the GTE driver, and in the end they have ended on a high with GT Karis' Skuns there having a bit of a middling affair today, but to be fair, bringing home another top 5 in the final race. He'll be pleased with that, but I think they'll have to look at what exactly happened there, because they were looking so strong in race number 1, but they gradually fell away in the latter races. But still, it's all about the consistency, and that's what matters in this championship when your team needs to get as many points as possible. MT's Miezo there, definitely representing the team after the unfortunate early retirement after race number 2 of Misha, where it just there was technical issues with the cars, where to understand it, but the MTE driver ended on a high P6. Fantastic racing from all of our drivers, however, all the way through. But we take a look back to our triple race winner here of Anzeng, who will shortly cut over to getting out of the car and celebrating, adding another win to his tally. But indeed, as night has fallen on the Autopolis circuit, it is going to be the case that our drivers will gradually put the cars to bed soon, because night has fallen on the 2022 championship. And what a fantastic championship it has been throughout the season. Indeed, covering Group B round after round, I can tell you we have seen some absolutely superb racing. We have seen thrilling racing, we have seen some major incidents, some drama, and well, everything in between. But the one thing that stayed fluid and consistent throughout all of it is the level of racing has been top notch, regardless of the drivers on the circuit and the overtaking moves we've seen. And it really does go to show that as we have made our transition onto the Gran Turismo 7 platform, GT Fusion is here to stay. But congratulations to GTB's Anzeng there for taking his 3rd win of tonight. And well, as we now look back to the lobby screens, ladies and gentlemen, that is the conclusion of our racing here today in Group B's round number 6 of the GT Fusion 2022 Team World Championship, as brought to you on Gran Turismo 7, available on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. Created by Polyphony Digital and published by Sony Interactive Entertainment, and the racing, of course, hosted in Oita Prefecture of Japan at the Autopolis International Racing Course Circuit. But congratulations to all of our drivers for participating today. Of course, a special congratulations to our podium finishers and our race winners, and to GTB in particular for their absolutely brilliant string of results. But at the same time, it's all about the taking part and turning up and putting the effort in. Fantastic racing from start to finish. Congrats to our drivers, and it really really has been a hugely brilliant end to what has been a fantastic day of racing at the Autopolis circuit. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, you know what that does mean. As we cut away from circuit side, it is time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed the season finale, Group B season finale of the GTfusiOn Team World Championship for 2022, with all the standings subsequently being published in the week to come, of course, the organisers will need to take all the lobby scores over today, over Saturday, over Friday, and mould them all together to create the final standings. If you do want to know more and see all of those final standings, you can, of course, go to the official GTfusiOn website, our website being www.gtfusion.org. Alternatively, if you're more inclined to go to a Twitter page, you can always go to the official Twitter, which is twitter.com/GTfusionGT. Or last but not least, where a lot of the organisational work goes on, it's on the Facebook page. Go to facebook.com/GTfusion.eu for further information there. Also, a big thank you to our partners, our title sponsor for this series, of course, Excite, their website, excite.be. Of course, the place to race, the ultimate racing experience in the simulator, translating over into the real world. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, the big question, of course, is what lies in wait next time? Well, given the recent updates that have been made to Gran Turismo 7 with the introduction of qualifying sessions and also the continued improvement of lobby stability that we've seen over the course of 2022, we are pleased to say that GTfusiOn shall be back in 2023 for an all-new 15th season of the Team World Championship. That's right, we'll be heading into the series' 15th anniversary, and it will be brought to you on Gran Turismo 7. And, well, what a lot we've got to look forward to, and all the racing will once again kick off in March 2023. So we've got a while to wait, but of course with the Christmas period in between and the winter, it's time for our drivers to pack up the cars, head on home, spend time with the family and friends, and get set for the year that lies in wait next year. But thank you very much for tuning in, folks. We hope you have enjoyed, and if you have, be sure to head to the web addresses we showed you previously. And well, we have been GTfusiOn. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, have a fantastic end to the rest of the year, and a Merry Christmas for 2022. But most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.